This reminds me, I have a gift for you. I brought you beef testicles.
Oh my God.
That's 2 testicles, man. That's the size of my fucking fist. One of the issues with Botox is this kind of facial emotion hypothesis. If I paralyze the muscles of my face, I am unable to mirror your emotions.
Yeah.
And that affects my ability to feel empathy for you. A woman that I went on a couple dates with, she said, me and my friends would rather look young than worry about this.
I went from being able to stand the sun for like 20 to 30 minutes before I was getting kind of pinkish. I nixed seed oils. 6 months later, still avoiding peak hours, I'm able to go out in the sun for as long as I want.
Sunlight is probably very important. It doesn't have to be on your balls.
Boy, it is fantastic though.
It feels good.
My dick just feels happy. 99.9% of people are on that cubicle, corporate ladder, whatever. I think a lot of people increasingly aspire to more of this holistic, nature-based lifestyle.
If you want to change your life, go into the woods. Don't do like microdose nature, like do a heroic dose. Get as far into wilderness as you can and let it just seep into you and then see what happens to the way that you think about the world.
Did you decide when you're leaving?
I'm probably gonna stay another 2 weeks
2 weeks, okay, cool.
because of F1.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's a shit show down here too.
I might go check it out. I'm pretty good friends with Cedric Gervais. He's a DJ.
Okay.
And I saw him at Anatomy the other day and he was like, yeah, I'm DJing F1. I was like, man, I would love to go to F1. He's like, come with me.
Amazing.
All right, cool. I might want to go to F1.
You should do that for sure.
Like bring a chick and
For sure. Yeah, are you dating somebody?
I'm working on it. I'm not dating anybody right now.
Okay. Is that part of the reason you're here?
That's a 90% of the reason I'm here.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to buy a condo. I'm looking at another investment as well. I'm doing investments this year for tax purposes.
Yeah.
For bonus depreciation.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Are you doing dating apps or what's your thing?
Some dating apps. I had a matchmaking service that I was working with, but I kind of stopped them. And then, yeah, mostly dating apps and then meeting girls in real life. Well, that's much harder.
What's the stopping point that's not working for you with most girls?
Well,
it's not Botox and filler, is it? Because if so, you're completely fucked.
There's a lot of stopping points that for me with women, like you got like values alignment, right? So I'm really looking for a woman that's probably mostly conservative.
Yeah.
Has to be at least okay. So like a huge litmus for me is the woman has to be willing to put her head under the water in the ocean.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I can't even tell you how many women that eliminates right off the bat.
Yeah.
So
first date's on the beach?
First date is usually on the beach. We go for a bike ride, swim in the ocean. Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to make sure she's like chill, you know?
Yeah.
I want to make sure she's okay getting her head in the ocean. She has to be adventurous. I live mostly in Costa Rica, man.
Yeah.
And I love the lifestyle there, but yeah. So yeah, you can tell pretty quickly.
Yeah.
I want an adventurous girl.
Yeah. So she also has to be not attached to a city then.
Not attached to a city. Although I have a place in Miami here now, but I don't want to spend more than a couple months here.
Yeah.
And in terms of US cities, I mean, we were talking about this. I think Miami's a pretty cool US city.
Yeah.
I can get in the ocean every day. I just got a paddleboard. I actually bought a surfboard the other day. I surfed at Haulover.
Really?
So I surfed. Yeah, I surfed. It's
not great surf though, right?
It's not great surf, but when you're a surfer, and you'll see this, like any surf is better than not surf, right? So I'm just happy to be in the water.
Yeah.
I caught a couple waves. It was horrible, but it was fun.
Yeah.
And you get in the ocean. It's sunny. It's warm. I can ground. There's semi-wilderness because you can look out at the horizon and you can see the horizon, you know? And on a paddleboard, you can get into the wilderness very quickly.
Yeah.
So I got 2 paddleboards. I got a 12.6 and it's like 27 or 29 inches wide. It's a 12.6 race board.
Okay.
And you can take that out past the buoys into the ocean very quickly. It goes fast.
Yeah.
And so I can be in deep water in the ocean in 30 seconds on a paddleboard or 10 seconds. And then I can just paddle around in the ocean. And that's wilderness, man.
That's a great workout
too.
Yeah,
it's a great workout. And so there's not a lot of cities in the US where you can do that in warm water.
Yeah, it's not too wavy out there either.
It kind of is. I mean, yesterday I took it out, the paddleboard, and I was getting worked. It was pretty wavy.
Yeah.
Miami, I've been on the beach for last month. I'm staying in Surfside in just an Airbnb right now. And it's windy sometimes and it's calm other times. When it's calm, it can be glassy and beautiful.
Yeah.
And the water is so clear.
Yeah.
The Atlantic is so beautiful and so clear. And then other times it gets windy when it's windy, you get wind chop, and that's when you get waves.
Okay.
But other times you get this classy ocean, and you could just go paddle.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you could see rays and sharks and all kinds of cool stuff. Yeah.
That's amazing.
I used
to do that outside of my condo in Santa Monica, and occasionally you'd see dolphins. One time I saw whales.
Yeah.
Dude, majestic experience.
It's incredible. It's just like, I think it's important for humans to feel small.
Yes.
And if we don't feel small, I think we lose track of where we are in the earth and the universe and our surroundings.
Yes.
Like, looking at the stars is humbling. It's beautiful.
Yes.
Like for me,
yes.
I've done a lot of things in my life that are kind of atypical or out of the box. I mean, I hiked the Pacific Crest Trail. I walked from Mexico to Canada.
Wow.
Yeah, in the year 2000, so a lifetime ago. I walked from Mexico to Canada, 2,700 miles.
Damn.
And I spent, 3.5 months sleeping on the ground every night. And that changed me as a person. But I did a lot of backcountry skiing. After college, I had 6 years where I was just a vagabond and I was a ski bum. I lived in Jackson Hole. I lived in Alta, Utah. I lived in Little Cottonwood Canyon. And I backcountry skied all the time. And I've been really fortunate to be in wild places, often with just a few friends or by myself. And that changes you as a human. I think this is necessary for us as humans to understand our place in the world. And I think one of the reasons, this is gonna sound like hyperbole or trite, but I think one of the reasons we're so confused as humans today is we've forgotten where we are in the world. We don't spend enough time in the wilderness or in true nature.
Right.
And so that's why I love living in Costa Rica. It's true nature. You gotta come hang out. And I mean, I like some civilization. I don't wanna wear a loincloth and camp all night, every night. But I like having access to real nature. I think it's good for humans, good for kids. And in terms of cities in the US, Miami has access to that in ways that a lot of other places don't. You can get a boat, and I'm thinking about getting a boat, and we could be in the Exumas in a couple of hours. Like we could take a boat.
It's the biggest advantage of Miami.
Yeah, we could be in the Bahamas in an hour to Bimini, and then we could go down to the Exumas for a few days and just dive. You'd have to pack a bunch of meat in a cooler because I've heard the food there is horrible. And I actually don't eat fish. We can talk about why.
Oh, interesting.
But but we could be in the Exumas diving in hours. And that's adventure. That's what humans need. There's a reason we like that. And so going back to the first thing we were talking about, like if a woman won't do that with me, she's probably a wonderful woman, but she's not the girl for me.
Yes. No, that's good connection. I've been paying attention to like meaning in life literature recently and listening to certain podcasts. And that is one of the number one things, is that you need to be connected to something bigger than yourself. Not physically bigger than yourself, but some purpose, something that's humbling, basically, to put yourself and your life in perspective. And nature definitely does that.
It's all around us. And in 2025, as Homo sapiens sapiens, we've intentionally / unintentionally pushed ourselves away from that.
Yes.
We've said, I want to be separated from that really big thing. Maybe because it makes us feel small and scary. Yeah. But we don't want to be connected with that. Yeah. And we need that.
There's kind of a catch-22 situation here, because we do need to push back the entropy of nature to some extent. That's what civilization is.
Yeah.
And then there's also all these economic advantages to crowding ourselves into cities. So, I think like New York City, for instance, it's an amazing place to visit. I have a good time there, but I could never imagine living in the concrete jungle. So there's this weird, like we've gone this, I guess, industrial age route into cities, but in doing so, we've lost touch with our origins and nature.
I think it's about just not forgetting. You know? I talk a lot about remembering and the remembering of things. I'm actually working on a documentary right now about food quality, and the documentary is likely going to be called The Remembering. The idea is that like we just shouldn't forget where we've come from. Yeah. I think it's okay to change as humans. Yeah. But you ever read any Chris Ryan? He wrote Sex at Dawn, and the other book he wrote was Civilized to Death.
I haven't read it yet, no.
I love that book. So Sex at Dawn is about polyamory. That's a separate conversation, which I don't necessarily agree with everything in that book, but he brings up interesting points. But Civilized to Death is really about what the title says. Like, I think his hypothesis is that we've gone too far, right? And you can civilize yourself to death. Sure. I like the fact that I could drive in a car to your house and I didn't have to walk here.
Yeah, of course.
Maybe it would have been more fun to ride a horse here, right?
It would have taken a lot longer.
Yeah, it would have taken a lot longer.
It'd be way cooler.
Yeah, it would have been, rolling up on a horse would have been way more baller than rolling up in my car. Yeah. But I like that I could drive a car here. Yeah. I don't love all of the chemicals in my car, right? Sure. But I like some aspects of it. I like that, that I can have a boat, know, and if I want a boat, I can have a boat with 5 500s on it, a Midnight Express. And I like that I can be in Bimini in the Bahamas in an hour. I'd rather we didn't have to build a raft and paddle ourselves there. Like, you know.
Yeah, technology is amazing.
It does a lot of good things. It does a lot of good things. Yeah. We just have to be intentional about the trade-offs.
Yeah. And then, so what is it? So back to the woman thing, just before I forget. Give whoever you're taking on a date, first date to the beach, and she's maybe not wanting to put her head in the water. I just want to share this story with you because it might be useful. When I first met my wife, she said something similar. She's like, oh, I don't like getting in the ocean. I don't like putting my face in the water. I was like, oh, fuck, this is a deal breaker, like out of the gate.
Right.
And what we, you know, I kept talking to her for a couple of days, and it turns out she actually loves the ocean. She loves jumping in the water, swimming. She's like very obsessed with nature, as obsessed with nature as I am. But on our first date, or the first few days we were together, she was actually worried about, she had done her face and she had all her makeup and jewelry on. Like, she didn't want to deal with the inconvenience or the hassle of getting into the ocean with this guy that she's on a first date with. So she was throwing me that line, basically, but it wasn't true. So I'd say if you're dating in Miami, just be sensitive to that. There's probably a lot of women out here that are just like not wanting to do that yet, but they might actually be closet nature lovers.
I hope to find that woman, you know. I hope to find that woman because, yeah, I mean, just me personally, like, I appreciate it when a woman goes to all the effort of putting on makeup and looking beautiful. Yeah. Most of the time, I just want to see what she looks like without makeup.
100%.
You know? Most of the time,
that's when they're the hottest, honestly.
I think women are so much more attractive without makeup, and I think women put on makeup for other women.
For sure.
I think that, to be fair, I think men do a lot of things for other men.
Yes.
And we can talk about this. You know, before the podcast, we talked about how many young men are taking testosterone or other androgens. And I think they're doing it for other men.
Yes, and women are doing the Botox and stuff for other women. And
we
should talk about this. This is so weird.
Yeah. But most of the people we're talking about are actually heterosexual. Like, we're attracted, like, these are women who are attracted to men are doing this for other women. And men who are attracted to women are doing this for other men.
Now, when we say doing it for other women and other men, they're competing with other women and other men, right?
They're sort of like competing with other women and other men, but also like doing it, like, I think they're competing on the wrong metrics, you know? Because if men asked women, let's talk about men first, right? Yeah. If men asked women, what physique do you find ideal? Yeah. Most women, in my experience and from the social research that I've seen, right? This is not a double-blind, placebo-controlled study, but from the social research I've seen videos, most women do not want a bodybuilder physique. No. They like something that's more muscular than an ectomorph, right? More muscular than a skinny guy, less muscular than Chris Bumstead, right? Less muscular than Mr. Olympia.
Yeah, it's like the lean kind of Brad Pitt Fight Club kind of look, right?
I think
lean and defined.
Lean and defined. I think most women like the way a special operator would look, you know? Like, I'm not a special operator. I know a few, but I think when you look at the guys, and the reason I mention that is because that's actually a functional physique. Like Navy SEALs, Green Berets, like highly trained operators in the military do not generally look like bodybuilders.
Of course.
That physique is not efficient if you have to run, right? It takes a lot of energy to fuel that physique in anything other than lifting a weight in a single plane of motion. Yes. Right? So if you want to surf, if you want to paddle, if you want to swim and be somewhat buoyant, if you want to climb a rope or climb a building, do anything in life other than move weight in a single plane, that physique is not the ideal physique. Yes. A lot of jiu-jitsu guys do not look like that. Now, there are some exceptions to that, but look at MMA guys, right? These guys are doing something that's very primal. Yeah. They're definitely endangering the long-term health of their brain, but they're doing something that's very primal. Like, boxers generally don't look like that. Some of the heavyweights might, but they're gonna gas. Yeah. Right? The most fighters who have a gas tank and can actually go 5 rounds don't look like that. For sure. This is just evolution. And so I think that somewhere women understand that. They want a man who can physically defend them. Yeah. And I want to be that for my woman in the future. If I'm in a situation where my family is threatened, I want to be able to fight, kill, and die for them. Of course. So I'm going to have the training, the stamina, the speed to do that. Yeah. And if I get that bulky, I'm slower. Yes. And I'm going to gas, right? So like men asking women what physique they want, they don't want that physique. Yeah. So we've sort of like, we're just like thinking, oh, I need to compete with these guys, but we've lost the plot as men. If you're like that huge and bulky, and most women don't like that in the first place. And my suspicion is that it's the same for women. That women, if women ask men, granted you and I are sort of a special case, right? But if women ask men, what are you attracted to? Do you like this much makeup, or do you like 50% less?
Yeah.
Or do you like, and I want to talk about Botox, do you like Botox?
Yeah.
Do you like filler? And most men don't even know what that looks like, but because I think women have, both men and women, but I think women have especially had their perspective of what's normal for their appearance very warped.
Yeah, and it's often done very subtly too, where like, there's women that have, I've heard my wife talk about it, that's where I get this information. Like women have too much of it done. And for me, that's very obvious. I call it the Puma look, right? Where they have the giant cheekbones and giant slanted eyes, and like they just look very aggressive and mean. Looks like a predatory cat sometimes. But then she's saying like, obviously you don't want to do that, but you want to like enhance what's already there, and you want it to not be, discernible necessarily. So there's this whole kind of art to it.
There may be, and we'll talk about potential downsides, even if it's subtle, because I think that the human brain and the musculature of our face is much more in tune with how our face moves than we're aware of. But yeah, I think if women asked men, a lot of men would probably have the same answer that we have. Like, I like you without makeup.
Yes.
I want to see you without makeup.
Yeah.
Like, and so I think women are doing the same thing. They're having a skewed perspective because they see what other women are doing, but they're not actually asking men enough,
Right.
Like, I think that the way this would happen is as men, we should find women that we are attracted to. Like, that's the type of woman I want, and ask that woman, right? Ask that woman, what do you like in a man? Because people are attracted to different things, right?
Yeah.
And women should find the type of guy that they're attracted to and survey them and say, what do you like? Should I,
Yeah.
But I think that, as humans, we're very tribal. And so I think it's natural for us to look at other members of the tribe of the same sex and think like, oh, I have to be better. But we also have to remember to check with the people we're actually trying to have mating success with.
Yeah, there's this weird, because obviously we're very imitative too. We were just talking about social media offline, right? Like one of the tried and true strategies for adapting content is to imitate what's working, basically.
Yeah.
So we also do that in the social, dating, even in business domains.
Yeah.
But maybe we start to over-index on certain dimensions. Like as men, we're like, oh, girls like muscles. Let me just get as many muscles as I can possibly get. But before you know it, like I've dated girls too that often say, it seems like it's a matter of proportionality, back to your point on functional physique. Because what women will often say about bodybuilder physique is that the guy looks like he has a really small head. Because you've just grown muscles that are so big, they're disproportionate to your head. And I've actually, I did bodybuilding kind of hobbyist. I never competed, but I did Olympic weightlifting before that. And there were times when I switched from Olympic lifting to bodybuilding that I was so big, my head actually looked a little small. And I've been through that. So are we just wired to pick up on proportionality? Because I often talk about beauty being symmetrical and based on ratios and whatnot. Is that what it is?
My guess would be yes. I mean, I don't really have any expertise in that area, but my guess would be yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. This reminds me, I have a gift for you.
Oh.
Well, I have two gifts for you. While we are talking about muscles and over-indexing on things, I brought you.
Let me make some notes too.
I brought you the biggest gift that a man could give another man. I brought you beef testicles.
Oh my God! My testosterone's going up just looking at these things.
And if you don't want to eat those testicles, I brought you some testicles in capsule form.
Oh my God! Thank you. Now this is not whole package. This is just testicle.
That's whole package.
Oh, it is whole package. Yeah. Okay, so I do
whole package has testicle, liver, and blood. Yeah.
I do take whole package often, so I actually didn't know. I didn't realize testicles were in the whole package.
Of course,
but of course they have to be.
That's why it's called that, bro.
Dude, thank you so much.
Yeah.
We'll eat these. My wife is quite savage with me, so she likes to do the carnivore stuff. So maybe we'll. Can women eat these?
Yeah, women can eat testicles.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, there's a supplement that we make at Heart and Soil, which is for women, which has ovaries in it.
Yeah.
So probably women are more inclined to eat like the corresponding organs.
Yeah.
But yeah, those are good. And the way that I do testicle, just so you know, is I just do it raw.
Okay, so you just thaw it out and eat it.
Thaw it out and eat it, but there's a membrane around it, right? Okay. Which is kind of like the actual skin, the scrotum. You cut that away, and then that's two testicles, man. That's the size of my fucking fist. You know?
Wow.
That's a bull, and
Same
you
size
cut
as my
it.
testicles.
Yeah. Yeah, and so you just cut it and you make like testicle sashimi.
Oh my God!
It's not as bad as you think. Just I could go to like a nice sushi restaurant in Miami, and be like, tell the chef and be like, hey, put beef testicle on the menu, charge $50 for it, and we're gonna cut these testicles and we're gonna give it to people, and they'll be like,
people will love it.
Okay, they would love it.
Yeah.
It's not as bad as you think.
I believe you, but I've also seen your stories where you're sharing this with other people and their facial expressions say otherwise.
Yeah,
sometimes.
I gave it to GSP once. I gave it to George St. Pierre. And he literally like he couldn't swallow it. But he was kind of doing it the wrong way. You know, you just basically, the first time you do it, you just want to cut it up, put it in your mouth, and don't chew, just like shoot her.
Shot it. Okay, got it.
Yeah.
It's probably a lot of mental games.
It's just mental too. But if you can eat raw oysters,
yes,
you can eat this.
I love raw oysters.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
this is the most ballsy gift anyone's ever given me.
I had to bring that to you.
In Bitcoin, we often dream about the idea of forming citadels, which are independent, self-sovereign communities that have their own energy, food, and water resources. Today, that dream is becoming a reality at the farm at Okefenokee. The farm is a 705-acre regenerative agriculture community located at the Florida-Georgia line near Folkston, Georgia. The farm is known as the healthiest place on earth, and it includes orchards, organic standing gardens, regenerative animal pastures, berry fields, and much, much more. Today, the farm features 25 custom-built cabins and has plans to construct 225 more in the years ahead. The farm has its own food, energy, and water sources and is completely off-grid. So if you're looking to join a Citadel community comprised of sovereign individuals, then go to okefarm.com today to learn more about membership. Make sure to tell them that I sent you for a $21,000 discount on custom cabin pricing. Again, that's okefarm.com to learn more about joining this revolutionary regenerative agriculture community. iCoin Technology has released a slick new hardware wallet. It looks like a mini iPhone with a high-res 3-inch touchscreen and camera on it. The device has no Wi-Fi, no cellular connection, and no GPS. It is an air-gapped hardware wallet which uses QR codes and a camera to communicate with the Bitcoin network. It has a built-in camera which is required for air-gap operation, and it has an optional Bluetooth compatibility. It's really a brand new user interface and user experience for a Bitcoin hardware wallet. iCoin makes self-custody accessible, easy to use, and non-intimidating. It even comes with an optional custom iCoin thermal printer so you can print out the private key and its associated QR code when you're setting up the wallet. This makes setup quick and simple. Also, it is easy to restore the wallet just by reading the seed phrase QR code with the wallet camera. And as we always talk about on this show, the only way you can truly own your Bitcoin is by having it in self-custody. So you need a device like the iCoin wallet to truly own your Bitcoin. So go to iCointechnology.com/breedlove today for 30% off the purchase of this sleek new hardware wallet. Again, that's iCointechnology.com/breedlove.
Okay, back to the women. And so we've got women doing all these aesthetic enhancements on their face.
And men too.
And men too. Yeah, as I shared with you. First of all, I almost prided myself that I was going to be this guy that never got it done, because I dated a few women that did it. They were always making the case to me about why I should get it done. I'd always resisted. Even the girl I dated before my wife, she was like very into that. She was in that industry. Wow. She had a lot of things done. She was gorgeous. Like she was doing it right. It wasn't too much, but she had like injuries from it and stuff. So like it was a whole.
What kind of injuries?
I don't even know all the details, but like she'd have something go wrong. She's like, oh, I need to stay home for a few days to heal this thing up.
Oh my God.
And so I was like, we had some arguments about, I was like, are you addicted to this? Like, is this something you need to like see someone about? So it can definitely be taken too far.
Absolutely.
But then finally, what my wife's proposition to me was like, look, you're in media, you're already on camera all the time. You're probably going to be doing this for years into the future. Doing some of these things in the right measured amount will prevent you from aging more. So like you'll age more slowly, basically. She's like, so the 50-year-old you will be thanking 30, this is 30, late 30s you for doing this. And so like, I don't know, this was the persuasive argument that eventually talked me into getting both Botox and what was the other one I told you? Sculptra.
Yeah, we can talk about both.
Which is some kind of filler, I think you said.
It's a filler, yeah. Let's talk about the Botox first.
But then you guys at the gym the other day were talking about this effect on empathy, which was like something I had never thought of.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, I've never had Botox. You can probably see that in my face. You know, I have lines on my forehead, you know? And I'm in the sun in Costa Rica a lot. I'm also 47 years old, so I've been on the planet a long time. So it's funny because this line of curiosity arose from dating women recently. Yeah. And especially women in Miami. Yeah. And I think that our conscious brain as humans is not aware, but I think that in our subconscious brain and in our empathy centers and our perceptive centers, we are very aware of the way that someone's face is moving that we're talking to.
Sure.
Whether it's our child, whether it's our partner, whether it's someone we're dating, whether it's a business partner.
Sure.
And we have 43 muscles in our face, 43 in your face, 43 muscles in your face.
Yeah.
The amount of facial expressions is so complicated, right?
Yeah.
And so one of the issues with Botox that hasn't really, I don't think, gotten enough attention is this kind of facial emotion hypothesis. The idea that your ability to move your face is connected with your ability to feel emotions.
Right.
Both positive and negative.
Yeah.
So there are studies out of Asia, not associated with Botox, where people would intentionally smile, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And like in those studies, they would feel happier subjectively, right? Because this is entirely subjective.
Sure.
Everything here is subjective. There is no objective measure of emotions without hormones or neurotransmitters, and we can't do that in real time yet. So it's all subjective, but they would subjectively feel happier when you would try and smile. Nobody's ever done the study, but I suspect that if you purposely frowned all day, you would probably feel worse.
For sure.
So on the positive,
it's entrainment, right? It's entrainment.
There's a connection between your facial muscles and what you feel in your brain.
Right.
These are not separated, right? This sort of siloing of systems of the body is an antiquated concept in medicine. It's all connected.
Yes.
So I'll start with the positive and then I'll go into the negatives of Botox. There are probably at least one or two studies where women get the frown lines injected. And I don't know exactly where that is on their body, but they get the frown lines.
Yeah, like right in here.
Maybe it is, okay.
Yeah.
So they get the frown lines injected on your face between your eyebrows. Those women actually scored better in terms of depression. So they were less depressed, less sad. That's kind of cool.
Because they're less capable of exuding the emotion.
Of expressing that emotion. Now, is it important for humans to feel a full range of emotions? Maybe so.
Yeah.
But you could argue, Botox has a positive because you could give it to somebody with depression and they might feel that emotion less.
Sure.
But let's be honest, because there's a lot of studies on the flip side.
Yeah.
Women who get Botox, it is changing the way that your muscles can move in your face for positive emotions too.
Yeah.
And it is changing, the most important part of this is it is changing your ability to mirror someone's expressions that you're talking to because there are neurons in your brain. These are mirror neurons.
Yeah.
With your child, with your spouse, with anyone in your life. If they make an expression, we mirror it. Yeah. We're not even aware of this consciously as humans. I am mirroring your expressions and you are mirroring mine in real time. If I paralyze the muscles of my face, I am unable to mirror your emotions. Yeah. And that affects my ability to feel empathy for you.
And to even communicate.
And to communicate at some level.
So nonverbal communication maybe is getting squashed.
My concern is that, and I know men and women do it, so I'm not meaning to just focus on women, but I think it's safe to say more women get Botox than men. Yeah. And my subjective experience is it, maybe this is just a subjective question, is it harder for me to connect with women in Miami because so many of them have had Botox, right? Can we get over it? I can hear the intonations of their voice, they're gonna move, they're gonna gesticulate, maybe. But does it impair my ability to pair bond with a woman that I'm dating that might become my wife if they have Botox? And there's levels to it, right? Is 5 units the same as 20?
Yeah.
I don't even know.
How many times?
How long? Because Botox does wear off.
Yeah.
What about between a mother and a child, right? What about between a newborn and the mother, right? The ability to mirror emotions, the ability for that child to learn emotions from the mother or the father. The rabbit hole goes deep here. Yeah. And it brings up legitimate concerns because you could say like, all right, fine, I'm pretty sure I can date a woman and have a successful relationship, even if she has some Botox. May very well be true. Yeah. What if your wife, and I'm not saying your wife, but anyone's wife, what if my wife has Botox and we have a child or children? Does that affect the ability of my wife to bond with our kids? Does it affect my children's emotional development? That's the question, because there are studies suggesting that it does negatively affect a woman's ability to feel empathy and a man's when they have Botox. So how much is too much? And then,
and I'm sorry, if you have Botox, it disables me from feeling empathy towards you, or both?
No, me from empathy
from
for
you being able
because
to,
I can't mirror your emotions.
But if only you have it and I don't, and you're not showing as much facial expression, does that also inhibit my ability to connect?
It could affect your ability to pair bond with me because you're like, I don't know what he's feeling. Right. Maybe our friendship, it's like, I don't know what Paul's feeling right now.
Can't read him. Too poker face.
Yeah, he's just all poker face. Like, Robert never seems happy, never seems sad. Like,
I already had that too before getting this shit done. So now I'm like, I probably just made that worse.
Like, say we're business partners, right? Like, I don't know how he feels about this business deal, right?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. Like, who am I trying to read? Like, maybe a business associate, somebody you want to do business with. You can't read their emotions as well. Even if they can't express or you can't mirror, it goes both ways. So like my realtor, right? Like, is my realtor lying to me, right?
Sure.
I don't think my realtor's lying, but like, I don't know, anyone you're gonna come in contact with, it's like, wow, okay. And then,
damn, that is interesting.
I had a guy on my podcast recently who brought this up to me and I wasn't even aware of this. I didn't believe him, but I looked it up and there are studies that show this and I can send you the reference. There is at least one, maybe two studies that are small. I think the sample size is probably 30 to 35 women. And they found that women who had Botox reported less intense orgasms.
Oh, wow.
Because, like the ability to move your face during sex or like the O face, right?
Yeah.
That's important. And if you can't do something, right? If you can't like have these expressions during sex or when you orgasm, it makes the orgasm potentially less intense. Like, okay, that's scary.
Wow.
Right? Okay, now we're really getting.
Now that's the ultimate advertisement against all of these beauty enhancements.
Against potential, like,
suppresses your orgasmic ability.
Maybe not ability to reach climax, but
intensity.
And again, it's all subjective, right?
Sure.
And maybe a woman says, I've had Botox and I have the best orgasms. Awesome. Right. We're happy for you.
Yeah.
Maybe it affects women differently. Who knows?
There's always bio-individuality.
Of course.
Right.
And so, but does it affect, again, now we're back to pair bonding. We're back to like sexual pleasure, which is a fundamental part of being a human, is experiencing that with someone. So you're like, okay, wow, this is concerning. And the last thing I'll say is that I texted one of my friends about this, a woman that I went on a couple dates with, and she said, me and my friends, because she asked her friends, me and my friends would rather look young than worry about this.
Wow.
Yeah, they said, I would rather look young. I would rather not look old than worry about my ability to have it. I was like, okay, we've lost the plot,
So what is that? What are they rank ordering there? Is it they would rather be better looking than the competition than have an intense sexual experience?
I'm not even talking about sexual experience. She was just saying, like, for empathy was what I was saying.
Empathy, okay.
Empathy, yeah. It wasn't even, I sent her the orgasm one next,
Wow. So they're kind of putting a competitive criteria above a connective criteria in a way.
Or it almost feels a little bit to me like fear-based thinking, which is totally human. Like, I want to be attractive. I want my partner to desire me.
Sure.
Or I want to feel desired in society more than I want to connect with humans.
Wow.
And look, like, one of these inputs is like very concrete. It's very easy for a woman to walk down the street or walk into a restaurant and feel all the eyes turn to her.
Of course.
It's a little more subtle to think, I'm not feeling empathy toward my partner, or I'm not bonding with my child as much, right? Like that's a little bit more, that's a little more intentional and nuanced. That's a little trickier.
No, that's a great point. It's a very visceral experience for a woman to feel or a man to feel the power that they have through physical attraction, right? In any social setting almost.
Yeah.
But the inability to connect with your child or feel empathy, that's much less loud, basically. You may not even notice that until you read one of these studies.
Yeah. And
you may not even notice the consequences of it ever. Yeah.
It's the kind of thing where it doesn't hurt me, right? I don't feel pain.
Right.
It's like, that's the scariest part of it, is if a woman isn't feeling empathy, you just might realize, like, my relationship just feels like it's not as rich as it used to be.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel pain for her. She doesn't feel an emotional pain. It's like a subtle it's like a subtle veil. Right? And this is the scariest part, I think, of this for humans, is when we're asleep, we don't know we're asleep, right?
Yeah.
When we wake up, whether it's through meditation, and obviously I'm being metaphorical here, when we wake up through meditation and we're more, oh my God, I didn't even realize that.
Yes,
you know, I mean, when I was in my 20s, I ate peanut butter and jelly with full of, you know, processed sugar with a spoon. When I would come back, I had no idea, right? I just had no idea the things that I was doing that were harmful for me. And it's the same sort of thing. If the veil comes down gradually, we don't notice it. And so we don't even notice how we're not showing up in the world anymore. It's a scary thing.
Okay, the other thing I've heard women say in general, I'm gonna generalize here, but they also, where men tend to be very focused on sexual gratification in their relationship, like we wanna be very physically attracted to a woman and want a lot of sexual satisfaction in the relationship, that actually tends to be lower down for women, right? They want more like socioeconomic security, social status. I think they're just more socially, this also comes, it's been said that men resolve conflicts physically, typically, and women resolve conflicts with like gossip and reputation attacks.
Interesting.
You know, so they play more in that social context field, whereas men play a little bit more in kind of the realm of ideas and facts and business and money. Generalizing, of course, not to say that you can't do both. Do you think that then opens women up to being more then you getting that result where the woman's like, I'd rather look young and pretty than have empathy because that's what gives me power in this domain?
Maybe so. Yeah, among your friends, right? If you feel like you have power within your, you know, because you think, once a woman finds a partner, she has one, presumably, usually one primary male relationship. But she has this tribe of women around her that she's also navigating. Who are you in your women tribe, right? You have one relationship with your husband.
And the pecking order is...
your hierarchy.
At least partly based on your physical attractiveness, of course.
So it's a scary thing. It's a scary thing. So I just want people to think about this. And again, you know, your audience may or may not know this. Like most of what I talk about, I'm a doctor, right? Most of what I talk about is human health in relation to food. But this just came on my radar recently, and I've branched out talking about microplastics and BPA and, you know, hormonal disruptors and things like this. But this is human health in a way that I've never thought about before. So this is definitely like a different thing than I've ever thought about. But most of what I talk about is how to feel good eating food.
You know what this is? It's another one of these uncontrolled social experiments we're running in real time, kind of like social media. We're like, we don't know what this does to people. Are you addicted to it? What does it do to the social fabric? We have no idea.
We have no idea.
But if this does dissipate empathy between people, presumably that would actually dissolve the social fabric to some extent. I mean, it would at least set up the conditions for more interpersonal conflict.
More interpersonal conflict, less interpersonal relation, less vulnerability, less authenticity. If we drift apart as humans, we're kind of done for. You know? So, and you know, the flip side of this is, okay, Paul, I shouldn't use Botox. How can I keep my skin young? So I can, you know, this is my perspective on this, right? People say, what do you do for skincare? And look, my skincare is not ideal. You know, I'm in the sun too much in Costa Rica. I think, you know, if you're worried about the sun on your skin, you can use a non-toxic sunscreen. The best I've seen now are tallow-based with non-nano zinc. I was on the beach the other day and my friend went up to a woman and he said, do you know how toxic that sunscreen you're wearing is? And she got super defensive. And he said, just Google, and he was telling me the story. He said, just Google the ingredients in your sunscreen, oxybenzone, octocrylate, avobenzone. There's many, many ingredients in most of the sunscreens that people are using that are known or strongly suspected carcinogens. So you should not use that sunscreen, but use a non-nano zinc tallow-based sunscreen if you go in the sun and you're worried about sun aging your skin. The other thing I would say is don't eat seed oils.
For sure.
Again, this is just anecdotal, but it's a fascinating.
I have the same anecdotal experience with this one.
Every time I've seen one of my friends or I've posted on X, which is a great place to get a social experiment, did you burn less when you stopped eating seed oils? The response is resounding.
Oh, yes.
You know, so there's something about seed oils specifically that causes humans, I believe, to age more quickly and to burn more quickly. So if you want to look young, don't eat seed oils. Use a tallow-based sunscreen that's non-nano zinc. Eat meat, because meat has collagen,
and fatty meat.
Fatty meat, yes, for hormone support. You need collagen. You know, I mean, you can supplement with collagen, but I think that the main benefits of collagen are for people that don't eat enough meat. If you're eating the right cuts of meat, they're going to have collagen in them. But if you want extra collagen, great. You know, Lineage just came out with a new collagen that I'm super proud of. So,
just got it. I'm excited to try it.
I want you guys to try it. But look, like the three things I would say to a woman or a man if they want to be beautiful is eat meat. Maybe 4. Eat meat, don't eat seed oils, sleep,
Yes.
And if you're gonna go in the sun in excessive amounts, use a good sunscreen, not a bad sunscreen. Right. So there's a formula against Botox. Your facial muscles will change, right? Yeah. You will get wrinkles as you age. Yeah. And I believe your life will be richer because of it if you can connect more. That's, again, it's a social experiment in real time. I'm just saying, like, knowledge is power, know better, do better. But I think that both men and women now, they fear red meat too much. We fear animal products, and that, if there's anything that's central to my message, it's don't fear animal products. I mean, I'll tell you this, and then I'll pause. I was in Whole Foods yesterday. It's actually fun being in Miami because I meet a lot of people who have seen my content, and the feedback they give me is very valuable. And so there's a guy, I was standing in the parking lot on a phone call, and the guy drove by in his car, and he said, "Hey man, I got a question for you. I love your content. Thank you. It's helped me so much. What about lipids?" And we can go into lipids later if you want, but he was asking, like, what about ApoB? What about lipids? When I eat meat, and I said, "What's your LDL cholesterol?" And he said, "Oh, it's this." And it's just, I mentioned this to illustrate the point that there are many roadblocks to people eating meat. I think from the women's side, women think meat is manly. I'm not gonna look good if I eat meat. I'm gonna get too bulky, which is, nothing could be further from the truth. Yeah. If you just do a survey, again, not scientific, beyond just observational, look at the women who eat more meat and look at the women who eat less meat. Pretty sure the women who eat more meat are way gorgeous. Hotter. Yes. Way hotter. Yeah. Way more fertile and way hotter. I look at women in Hollywood or prominent women who go vegan and stop eating meat. I'm certain that they don't have a menstrual cycle. They become infertile and they look malnourished and they do not look attractive. That's not what a man wants, right? A man wants you as a woman to have curves, to be fertile, right? To have
the glowing skin.
Yes, that comes from animal products. Look, you can eat some plants if you want. We can talk about, where and when, but like the lipid conversation is fearful for people, but I think that there's a lot of ways to think about this, that eat meat, it's just, what a hack,
Yeah, for sure. The other piece there, like, if you don't want to use sunscreen at all, which I try to not use any at all, if you just, you do the hat, but you also just avoid sun at peak hours, right? Like, this is old Middle Eastern thing too. They just go out, before, it depends where you are, but before 10 a.m. and after 3 p.m. or after 4 p.m., something like that.
It's the same way in Costa Rica. I mean, I surf in Costa Rica from 6 a.m. to 8:30. Yeah. I generally don't need sunscreen. By 8:30 at the equator, you almost need a little sunscreen, but not much, But yeah, if I'm out in the middle of the day in Costa Rica, if the tides or the swell at a point break is a certain way and I'm gonna surf at noon, man, I'm gonna have a hat, I'm gonna have sunscreen, it's intense.
Sure.
And so, if you're in Miami in the middle of the day, you probably want some sunscreen. Yeah. And it's fun to be at the beach at noon sometimes, or something happens outdoors. But I mean, hats are great. I think women realize this, but you don't have to wear sunscreen all the time. But most women I know, they wear sunscreen every single day, no matter what they're doing, at least on their face. Yeah. And so if you're doing that, just understand that there are endocrine disrupting compounds, so oxybenzone, avobenzone, octocrylene, yada, 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 that are endocrine disrupting, that are excreted in your poop and your pee. Yeah. Clearly they get absorbed through the skin. They have to transit through your body to exit your body through your poop and your pee. And they're associated with increased rates of cancer and hormonal problems. So it's problematic.
Yeah, it's very pernicious because people think they're defending themselves from the very things that they're causing in a way, right? Like they think they're wearing the sunscreen to protect themselves from cancer, not knowing that they're actually giving themselves at least some carcinogens that could lead to
other cancers. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if you look at the studies with vitamin D specifically, and you can supplement with vitamin D, but like vitamin D deficiency is associated with solid organ cancers, or or blood cancers also. So like vitamin D deficiency probably causes more cancers than excess ultraviolet even hypothetically would. Yeah. The skin cancer conversation is quite complex. If you look at melanoma, which is the one that everyone worries about, it's very hard to make a case that melanoma is a strongly associated sun cancer. Okay. It's really not strongly associated with sun exposure.
And that's the one that's been sold to people
as like the
reason.
Worst one,
yeah,
right?
Of course.
I mean, I think, fact me on this, I'm pretty sure Bob Marley had a melanoma on the bottom of his foot or on his back, somewhere that was never in the sun. And he was African-American, right? So melanoma, maybe not super sun associated. In fact, there are studies of outdoor workers who get chronic mid-level sun exposure. They have lower rates of melanoma.
Interesting.
So maybe getting burned, fried, that could increase your rate of melanoma. Yeah. The other thing is there are observational studies associating seed oil consumption in some countries with melanoma. That makes sense to me because I think that there are mechanisms, and again, this is mechanistic data. Yeah. The seed oil studies just haven't been done, but I think mechanistically there is a strong mechanism to associate long-term consumption of seed oils with decreased immune function and then cancer arising from that. So the immune system and cancer go hand in hand.
Yeah.
When your immune system doesn't work properly, cancers arise. We all have micro cancers every day, and it's about having a healthy immune system that snuffs those out.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that seed oils in cancer are potential. The other two types of skin cancers are squamous and basal. These are associated with the sun, and how much of their association with the sun comes from a population where 85, 90% of people eat seed oils every single day. So yes, they're associated in our culture, in our society, with skin cancers. With the sun is with squamous and basal, but is it more in people that eat seed oils? Who knows? Like, if you and I go in the sun and we don't eat seed oils, would we get squamous or basal cell? I don't know.
Yeah.
My suspicion is no. We might age a little faster, maybe, and you can mitigate that with hats or non-toxic sunscreen, at least on your face. But I think that the squamous and the basal cell cancers are probably also associated with seed oils. And again, I'll just say this and then I'll pause. I think that's probably connected with something with vitamin E in the skin.
Yes.
You know, that's something uniquely about seed oils, I worry, depletes vitamin E over time. And we've seen that in some studies that when you consume seed oils, there is something about the way that oil is refined, bleached, and deodorized. Yeah. And we know that the oils in those seed oils accumulate in the human body. Something about that leads to kind of a very increased need for vitamin E, excuse me. Sometimes that you just can't, you'd have to supplement with massive amounts of vitamin E. So this balance between vitamin E, which is one of the main things that protects these oils from oxidation in the human body, they're more fragile because they're polyunsaturated oils. So because vitamin E is needed for that, you see when you feed people seed oils chronically, their vitamin E levels start to go down and you have to give them more vitamin E supplementally to even protect against that. So I think that the seed oil vitamin E thing is something that hasn't been talked about enough, but I don't think you should eat seed oils and supplement with vitamin E. I just think you should stop eating seed oils.
For sure, for sure.
Forget multivitamins and other supplements. Animal organs are the most nutrient-dense foods on the planet. You can get 100 times more nutrients from organs than you can from muscle meats. But the problem with eating organs is that they are difficult to find in stores, they are difficult to prepare, and even when they are prepared well, they often don't taste great. Thankfully, Heart and Soil Supplements has made consuming organ meats so much easier by providing powderized organs in capsule form. Organ meats include everything your body needs to thrive: vitamins, minerals, peptides, proteins, and growth factors. This is why organ meats were the most prized foods for our ancestors. Fortunately for us, Heart and Soil makes these treasured foods easily accessible. So go to heartandsoil.co today and use discount code BREEDLOVE to get started on your journey to optimal health and vitality. Again, that's heartandsoil.co, discount code BREEDLOVE. Have you ever wanted to start a business in the Bitcoin space? If so, then the Wolf Startup Accelerator could be for you. Wolf is the first startup accelerator dedicated exclusively to businesses developing in the Bitcoin Lightning Network. 4 times each year, Wolf brings teams from around the world to New York City to work with like-minded entrepreneurs, pushing the boundaries of what's possible with Bitcoin and Lightning. The program is designed to help early-stage companies achieve product-market fit, develop their brand, secure early-stage funding, and grow businesses that fuel the global adoption of Bitcoin. Go to wolfnyc.com to learn more or apply today. Again, that's Wolf, WOLFNYC.com.
I've shared this before, but just since it's relevant, my own anecdotal experience with seed oils was like living in Hawaii at the time. It was thanks to you, Sean Baker, other people talking about seed oils, like get them out of your diet. I went from being able to stand the sun for like 20 to 30 minutes before I was getting kind of pinkish and feeling intolerant to it. And I'm someone who, I used to be in the sun a lot as a young guy growing up in Tennessee. Like I was always out in the sun. I didn't wear sunscreen. I was, I'm a white guy, but I was like tan for myself. But as I got older, I seemed to have a declining tolerance to the sun. So long story short, I nixed seed oils. 6 months later, I'm able to go out in the sun for as long as I want, basically, and like I don't really burn. Bronze. Now, obviously, still avoiding peak hours. I didn't go out at noon and bask in it, but 2, 3, 4 p.m., like I'd go out for a few hours and have no problem. And as you said, many people have reported this anecdotally.
And I think that that's valuable, you know?
Yeah.
Some of the most rigid folks in the health and nutrition space would say anecdotes are worthless. And I would say, man, I think anecdotes are interesting.
How?
It's a hypothesis, you know?
Yeah.
The adage is the plural of anecdote is not data. Well, fine. The plural of anecdote is hypothesis. The plural of anecdote is curiosity.
Yes.
You know, when you have hundreds, if not thousands of people doing something like that, we should be curious and say, what's going on there?
Yeah, it prompts a study.
It prompts a study if the NIH weren't corrupt, you know?
Yeah.
If there was somebody that wanted to, it prompts a hypothesis, you know?
I want to go, because we picked on the women a lot. I also want to pick on the men for what they're doing. But before that, because I think we're still in that area, lipid oxidation, is that related to seed oil consumption?
Absolutely. Yeah, that is.
And could you define what that is too, how it contributes to cardiovascular disease?
Yeah. So lipids are fats, right? There are different types of fats that we take in the human body. And fats are long chains of carbon, and on the end is a carboxylic acid, right? That's a fat. So like a saturated fat, like stearic acid, is an 18 carbon molecule. It has carbon, 18 carbons, and the last carbon has a carboxylic acid group, right? And then otherwise it's just carbons bound to hydrogens. It's a long chain, right? Yeah. And a saturated fat means that every carbon in that molecule, it has hydrogens, all single bonds, all the way down to single bonds.
Okay.
When you have an unsaturated fat, you have one double bond. And if you have a polyunsaturated fat, you have two double bonds. So two of the carbons in linoleic acid, which is an 18 carbon omega-6 polyunsaturated fat, have double bonds between them, right?
Okay.
And the thing here is that you count, the nomenclature is the number of carbons from the non-carboxylic end, where the first double bond is. That's how you label it omega-3 versus omega-6.
Okay.
So an omega-3 fatty acid has multiple double bonds. Those have even more. Those are polyunsaturated, but they have 3 or 4 or more double bonds in an omega-3 often. And omega-6s can have more than 2 double bonds. Just linoleic acid, which is the 18 carbon omega-6 polyunsaturated fat that is most highly represented in seed oils, is 2 double bonds. Every time you put a double bond in a fat, it is more susceptible to oxidation and peroxidation specifically.
Okay.
So lipids form peroxides, where a molecule comes in and attacks the double bond. You get a lipid peroxide, and then you can get a lipid peroxide radical. So if you heard the term free radical?
Of course. And antioxidants are...
The purpose of an antioxidant is to eliminate the free radical.
Yeah.
And what we're talking about with peroxidation, oxidation, and the formation of a radical is the loss or gain of electrons.
Okay.
So a molecule, a lipid peroxide radical with an unpaired electron, is very highly reactive. And it can start a chain reaction in the human body. And that's where things go very, very bad.
Okay.
And a chain reaction means I steal an electron. I'm a lipid peroxide radical. I steal an electron from you. You steal an electron from the next guy. And in the process, we're just damaging things along the way. And you could go and steal an electron from DNA. You could go and steal an electron from a protein and change the conformation of the protein. You could go, and the way this relates to atherosclerosis is that LDL, so low density lipoprotein, is a membrane-bound particle in the human body that carries cholesterol and triglycerides. Colloquially, we think of cholesterol as LDL, but LDL actually carries cholesterol. And it's a membrane bound. So it has a membrane, and in that membrane are phospholipids. Not pure fats, there are, phospholipids. These have a phosphate head and then 2 tails. So they have 2 fatty acid tails generally. Sometimes they have more. And those fatty acid tails can be saturated fats or unsaturated fats. And when there are more unsaturated fats in the tails of those phospholipids that make up our membranes are more polyunsaturated. That changes the fluidity in the membrane, and it changes the susceptibility of the membrane to oxidation, right? So when you have an oxidized lipid or oxidized LDL, you have membrane changes in that LDL particle that have caused a lipid tail of one of those phospholipids in the membrane to become cleaved off and to be free, right? And that free lipid forms a lipid peroxide, and it starts oxidizing things, and it creates this chain reaction. There is an enzyme in the human body called LPPLA2, lipoprotein phospholipase A2, and that enzyme cleaves fatty acids off the membrane components. And when it does that, they become oxidized, and that starts a chain reaction. Now, I don't think anyone in Western medicine or mainstream lipidology would debate the fact that oxidized lipids are problematic for humans, and that oxidized LDL is very strongly associated with increased cardiovascular disease.
Yeah.
So to me, I think it makes a lot of sense that if you fill your LDL particles, your LDL cholesterol, with more linoleic acid, and linoleic acid is the single greatest source of polyunsaturated fats in the human diet. If you fill your body with more fragile fats, you are going to get oxidized LDL. That is established multiple times over in randomized controlled trials in humans. And if you have more oxidized LDL, it follows that you are increasing your cardiovascular disease risk, because oxidized LDL is either or both damaging directly to the endothelium, the inside of your blood vessels, and potentially clearly inflammatory at the level of a cellular milieu inside the arterial wall. So at a very basic level, the way that atherosclerosis starts is you get oxidation of lipids in the arterial wall, and the oxidation of those lipids leads to a conformational change in the proteins on the outside of the LDL molecule. And that conformational change leads to those leads to that LDL particle being perceived as a foreign invader, and then engulfed by a macrophage. In some ways, it's autoimmune.
Wow.
Engulfed by a macrophage into a foam cell, and then it progresses potentially. So oxidized LDL is one of those changes. There are many who would agree with the statement that native LDL is not atherogenic. Oxidized or modified LDL appears to be potentially atherogenic, but there's a big distinction there. Native LDL, right? Native LDL is a healthy LDL particle, right? And so the way this happens is you eat fat, the fat goes into your stomach, it goes into your intestines. There are particles that are formed in your intestines called chylomicrons. They package the fats from your diet and the cholesterol from your diet, and they move it to the liver. And then in the liver kind of reassembles all of these into particles. Starts out as VLDL, and then IDL, and then LDL in your blood. So the liver takes in chylomicrons from your intestines through the blood, and it packages it into LDL. And the liver actually sends out cholesterol and fats to your body because they're building blocks.
Sure.
You make your hormones out of cholesterol.
Right.
You make testosterone and estrogen, progesterone. All of the steroid hormones, cortisol, are from cholesterol. You need cholesterol. Your body makes cholesterol.
Right.
You make 1,000 milligrams plus of cholesterol per day in the human body, most people. And so you make a lot of cholesterol because your body needs this. And so your body packages cholesterol and triglycerides, which are just fat, into LDL particles. They leave the liver as VLDL and then transition to LDL. They circulate in your body as LDL. They drop off their contents, and then they pass some of their contents to HDL generally, and the HDL, broadly speaking, circulates back to the liver.
Got it.
So you have a bus system in your body, and these buses are these membrane-bound particles.
And the LDL, HDL, people often call this good and bad. Is it good HDL is good, LDL is bad? Is the typical moniker?
That's the typical, but I think it's obviously misguided because without LDL, you die.
Sure.
Right?
Okay.
There is a genetic syndrome called Smith-Lemli-Opitz syndrome, where kids don't make cholesterol well in the liver. They have a defect in the enzymatic pathway, and they have very low levels of LDL, or they're not going to be able to make a lot of LDL. And they have developmental delay, they have sleep disturbance, they have behavioral problems. The therapy they are given is concentrated egg yolks, because they're just given a ton of cholesterol so they can actually make the LDL in the same way. Because if you don't have anything to put into the LDL, you're not gonna have enough LDL. So you need these lipoproteins.
And this is a common thing people, I guess this is the guy in the parking lot, right? He was saying, hey, I have, I don't know, is it high LDL?
Quote, high LDL.
Yeah, but it's high based on a standard that's perhaps misleading.
It's high based on a shifting standard.
Okay.
The level of his LDL, he said his LDL was 145 milligrams per deciliter. And then ApoB, which is another measure of ApoB containing lipoproteins. So ApoB is more accurate than LDL if you want to actually look at a particle, actual real particle amount. The LDL metric you see on blood work is milligrams per deciliter, so it's a density. So it's a weight per a volume, it's a density measure. But when you get an ApoB, you're actually looking at it's a little more accurate for the number of particles that contain this ApoB. So ApoB is apolipoprotein B. Generally, we're talking about B100. It's on LDL, it's on VLDL, it's on LP(a), which is another particle that we can talk about. But you're just trying to get like a better metric for how much LDL, how many of these particles you have in your body. The mainstream thinking is that these particles are directly atherogenic. The more LDL you have, the more you're going to get atherosclerosis in your arteries.
Okay.
And that scares people, right? But what we're not told is that, look, humans have always had LDL, right? We've always eaten a diet like what this guy is eating. In fact, I would say the healthiest humans have eaten a diet like what this guy is eating. I said, what do you eat? He says, I eat like you. I eat meat, I eat fruit, I eat squash. He's not eating anything crazy. And his LDL is 145. And that's pretty much where mine is most of the time now. Now, as an aside, if you go keto, there is a phenotype where people get this lean mass hyperresponder phenotype. And I had this when I was pure keto. Your LDL can go to 300 or 400 or 500. That's a separate thing that we can talk about. There was actually a study about that recently that was interesting. But for most of us, if we are eating carbohydrates, if you are not eating seed oils and you are eating more saturated fat, if you are someone that espouses the perspective that red meat is good for you, that the saturated fat that comes with red meat is good for you, that butter, is good for you, and there are many studies to support those assertions, whether it's fertility or hormones or testosterone or just anecdotal things that we've experienced, but there's solid medical literature to support those assertions, and there's lots of anecdotal data. But if you believe those things and you favor saturated fats over refined, bleached, and deodorized seed oils, and you don't fear butter, your LDL for most humans will go, quote, high. And I think even 60 to 70 years ago in Western medicine, an LDL of 145 would not have raised any eyebrows.
It's probably just completely normal.
It was probably completely normal. But now we have shifted the normal range for LDL so much because of statins and this concern about LDL.
This is a corruption of Western medicine thing.
It's a little bit of potentially a corruption of Western medicine. It's definitely a change in the paradigm, which may or may not actually be a change in the right direction. So the zeitgeist has changed, right? And now you have well-intentioned, intelligent doctors who are really proselytizing people to have an LDL as low as possible and suggesting that you or I should be on a statin or a PCSK9 inhibitor. And I've pushed back on that a lot, saying, look, like, I'm eating meat, I'm eating evolutionarily appropriate food. I'm not smoking, right? I had a CAC scan, a coronary artery calcium scan, which isn't a perfect scan, and it was 0 when I was 42, so 5 years ago. And this guy had a CAC scan. He's 44. I said, "Do you have a C?" He said, "Yeah, it was 0." Granted, we're young. Maybe we don't have calcified plaque, but and intuitively, it doesn't make sense to me that LDL is atherogenic. And if you look at the medical literature, there are many instances in the randomized controlled medical literature or in medical literature in general of LDL not correlating with cardiovascular disease. So ApoB does not correlate with cardiovascular disease when humans are insulin sensitive.
Got it.
So it's all contextual, right? And this is what I was mentioning a little bit earlier with the seed oils. Like, I think that the Western medical system is not good at understanding context. We're not good at understanding that not all humans are created equally. And we should not generalize. Like, if we're actually talking about the mechanistic basis of these things, we need to understand the nuance, because the nuance affects how people like you and I live. And people listening to your podcast, or people listening to Rogan's podcast, or large podcast audiences, if they're intentional, they might not need to live the way that Western medicine is going to advocate for somebody who hasn't yet figured this out and isn't going to think intentionally about their diet and maybe insulin resistant. So with LDL and ApoB, the way I see it is, look, if you are insulin resistant, then it is very likely that more LDL will lead to more atherosclerosis. But if you are not insulin resistant, it doesn't look like that's the case at all. And to me, this suggests that LDL is not enough. Like, it's necessary, but it's not sufficient, right? It's not enough to cause atherosclerosis on its own. Is there an argument to LDL lowering in someone that has had a heart attack, that refuses to change the way they eat, that is saying, I want to eat donuts and I want to eat, pasta with seed oil laden sauce? Yeah, there's an argument there. But you have to be, it's important.
It's not the sole marker, basically.
It's not the only marker, right? And I think if you look at the literature, I do not believe there is evidence that is strong enough to suggest that LDL cholesterol, that is ApoB containing lipoproteins, initiate atherosclerosis de novo, right? Are they involved in the process? Yes. Doesn't mean they initiate it de novo. So I'll give you an analogy that I've used. If we're having a campfire, we need wood, right? Wood doesn't make the fire, but wood is necessary for the fire to start. We need a spark. But wood is also valuable, because if we're living in the woods, we can use that wood to make a house. We can use that wood to make a teepee or a structure. It's similar in the human body at the first level of this analogy. LDL is valuable, right?
It's a raw material.
It's a raw material. And if you look at cohorts of people who are older, the Leiden 85 study, many other studies, those who had the most LDL did the best. They had the lowest rates of mental health issues. They had the lowest rates of dementia. They had better lives as they aged. They lived longer.
Got it.
When their LDL was higher. And I've seen this from people who look at insurance cohorts. Like a lot of centenarians have high LDL.
Yeah. So,
okay, tell me LDL is causing atherosclerosis and it's going to make you die earlier if the centenarians have high LDL.
Right.
It's much more complicated, right?
I want to ask you was it the CAC test?
CAC score,
so
coronary artery calcium score.
So you're testing for calcification of the veins and arteries? Okay.
Just the heart arteries.
When do you recommend men? I assume this is men probably need to focus on.
Men and women, but the CAC score.
When should men or women start getting this? Like age of 40?
Yeah, the first time you go to your doctor and they freak out over your LDL of 140.
Have that test.
Just have a test. It's the CAC scores have gotten good enough that the radiation is low.
Okay.
Right? The next step on the equation is a CT coronary angiogram, which is significantly more radiation, and you would not want to do that every 6 months, right?
Got it.
But a CAC score is moderate amount of radiation. You could do it once every 5 years, right?
And that gives you the baseline. If you're at 0, then you're good.
It gives you a baseline for calcified plaque.
Yeah.
So there's calcified and there's non-calcified. A CT coronary angiogram will give you non-calcified plaque.
Okay.
So it's more sensitive, right?
Right.
But, and people who have 0 CAC scores sometimes have cardiac events. But it's if you look at the data, if you have a 0 CAC score, your 10-year cardiac risk is vanishingly small.
Got it. Okay.
Vanishingly small.
Would you rather have 1 Bitcoin today or 2 Bitcoin a few years from now? Bitcoin mining is a tried and true strategy for accumulating Bitcoin. Over a 2 to 4 year time frame, successful miners have consistently accumulated more Bitcoin than they otherwise would with a traditional dollar cost average strategy. Blockware mining as a service enables you to start mining Bitcoin from your laptop. Blockware handles everything from securing the miners to sourcing low-cost power to configuring the mining pool. They do it all. Plus, with Blockware's one-of-a-kind mining marketplace, you can buy and sell live Bitcoin miners with just a few keystrokes. In this marketplace, buyers get to purchase live machines at vetted facilities, enabling them to mine with 0 lead time. And sellers get the opportunity to liquidate their machines and hosting contracts at will. This means you can mine Bitcoin with 0 long-term commitment and high liquidity on your mining rigs. Blockware will even cover your energy bill for 1 week per mining rig when you sign up at mining.blockwaresolutions.com/breedlove. Again, that's 1 free week of Bitcoin mining at mining.blockwaresolutions.com/breedlove. And on top of this offer, you can also use code BREEDLOVE to get $100 off your first mining rig with Blockware Solutions. Bitcoin custody is evolving. Both self-custody and single third-party custody come with significant risk and trade-offs. Onramp is pioneering a new standard, multi-institution custody, which eliminates single points of failure, adding fault tolerance and redundancy to your setup. Onramp secures your Bitcoin in a segregated cold storage multi-key vault guarded by 3 independent institutional-grade custodians, none of which have unilateral control over your keys. Your funds are fully auditable on-chain, cannot be rehypothecated, and can only move or be withdrawn at your explicit direction. Multi-institution custody removes the technical, mental, and physical burdens of private key management, providing unparalleled peace of mind for you and your loved ones. Bitcoin is money, and as the price continues to appreciate, Onramp helps you seamlessly tap into financial services like trading, inheritance, insurance, loans, IRAs, and more, all without compromising on security or accessibility. Schedule a consultation with the Onramp team to learn more at onrampbitcoin.com/breedlove. Again, that's onrampbitcoin.com/breedlove.
Going back to the guys to pick on the guys. So we picked on the women for all of the whatever, Botox, etc. that women do. So maybe just, what are all those things women are doing? It's like Botox, plastic surgery.
I don't even know, bro. I don't think I even know.
I don't really know. But Botox, all these things, fillers, anything that's modifying your ability to express emotion could have this empathy thing, could also have the orgasm dampening
potentially,
thing. But what you, just to put a button on it, the positive side would be like it could dampen your ability to have lower emotion. If that's positive, though, that might actually not. I saw this thing. This is a reel of Bob Ross painting. This was 1 week after he had lost his wife to cancer. And he was painting saying, you know, oh, we got to put some dark here because if you have dark without light, it doesn't make any sense. You've got nothing. And if you've got just light without dark, then you've got nothing. Like you need to have both of these things to have experience, basically. So what you were saying is like the possibly anecdotal, I don't know, whatever. Botox and these other aesthetic enhancement treatments can maybe dampen our ability to experience and or express a range of human emotions.
Maybe. Yeah.
And the consequences of that are
and
unknown.
to feel the empathy that's around that. So we'll just say this and then we'll move on. What if a woman or a man has had Botox and the frown lines and she can't feel the sadness and she's with someone who's sad?
Yeah.
So like your mirror neurons, or say you and I have had Botox, or I've had Botox and you're sad.
Yeah.
If you're making a sad face and I can't make a sad face, do I have less ability to feel sadness with you and bond with you?
Right.
So on one hand, I just wanted to try and give a balanced perspective and say, look, like there is a study that says it decreases depressive symptoms.
Yeah.
But if you can't mirror someone's sadness, how do you talk to your kid?
Sure.
You know, how do you talk to your spouse when someone dies in the family? It's just, again, we're talking about human connection, and I think that you have to be able to feel sad emotions to make human connection.
Yeah, and communication. Like almost every conflict I think I've ever been in, personal or professional, you always end up back at communication.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, oh, I said this meant this, you said that meant that. There's always some miscommunication that you need to painfully excavate and figure out where it occurred and then try to make it not occur again. But what you're saying is there's a disruption in communication.
Potentially.
At least. So just think about it. You know, I don't know that we have a hard and fast answer of saying, don't get it, don't do it. I don't think we're going to convince women at all, by the way.
I don't think we're going to convince women either.
We're just two dudes standing in a yard, sitting in the yard. But.
Yeah. It's two dudes sitting in the yard who are saying like, ladies, don't do it because we prefer you not to have it, but who knows?
Yeah, very true. Okay, so now to pick on the guys. There's a lot of guys, and probably both of these things have to do with social media to some extent, that people are just able to get more attention online if they do either the aesthetic enhancements, typically women, but also men. But men tend to do more of the hormonal steroid enhancements, so taking testosterone plus to get more developed, more defined physiques.
Yeah.
Women also do this as well, but again, more prototypically, this is men. And the thing that really shocked me about this is like men that are in their hormonal primes, you know, ages 17 to 27, something like that, are the guys doing this stuff. And so what are the risks? What are the consequences? What should these guys, frankly, there's a lot more guys that listen to the show than girls, so we should probably really pick on the guys a lot more. What should they be thinking about if they're considering using TRT or anything of that sort?
Yeah, so there's different levels, right? You have anabolic steroids, and you have testosterone replacement.
Which also mix in peptides, probably? I don't know where that fits in here.
Yeah, peptides are a different story, but...
okay, we can go there next.
Yeah, so the thing with testosterone is just that when you take exogenous testosterone, you are shutting down your testicles.
Yeah.
And so...
So they're not going to look like this anymore.
They're not going to look like that anymore. They're going to shrink, you know? Like, so it's well known that, you know, if you solely take testosterone, your testicles will shrink. They will atrophy and you may not get function back. Now, some men are trying to balance this by taking HCG. And that may help with that. So the first thing is if you only take testosterone, you are going to affect your fertility because if your testicles are not functioning, they're not making sperm.
Right.
Guys may not know this, but your testicles are where your sperm is made. There are Leydig cells, and there are Sertoli cells in the testicles, and they both are influenced by hormones that come from the pituitary gland, LH and FSH. And if you take testosterone, you will shut down your LH and FSH. And this is why one of the basic tests that you can do to tell if somebody's taking testosterone is ask them for a blood level of LH and FSH. And so every once in a while, somebody asks me, are you on TRT? And I say, no, I never have been. Here's my blood work. Here is my LH and FSH. They're normal. When I see a patient on TRT, their LH and FSH are essentially zero.
Yeah.
Your brain isn't telling your testicles to produce testosterone.
Right.
Your brain is not sending signals to the Leydig cells and the Sertoli cells. That's where the testosterone usually comes from. And it also comes from your adrenals somewhat, but it's mostly your testicles, and you shut it down. Your testicles shrink, you affect your fertility because of the sperm production. You can try and mitigate that with HCG, but now you're sort of plugging holes in the dam, right? You're whack-a-moling, right? And so you're saying, okay, well, I want to be on TRT, but I also want to be fertile enough to have children. So I'm going to take HCG with my TRT. And
is this where the cycling comes in? That they'll do some of this?
Yeah, you can cycle.
Yeah. Okay.
And so I think that the problem is that the other issue is that if you start taking TRT, you may be on TRT for the rest of your life.
Mm-hmm.
Some men can go on and get off. A lot of men cannot. So now you're taking.
What is it? Why can't you go? You're saying your testicles just atrophy and they don't come back online.
For some men, they don't come back online.
And then you're just stuck taking testosterone.
You have to.
Wow.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you just become a she-man?
Hypogonadal.
Wow.
And depressed. Yeah, I mean, so extreme example here. You know, there are lots of bodybuilders who end up in this situation, right? Now they're taking TRT and they're taking, you know, anabolic steroids, Tren, Deca, I don't even, things that I don't really know much about these, but they're strong and they have they're androgens, right? That do different things in the human body. They're going to be on TRT for the rest of their life.
Right.
100%.
Just to be normal.
Just to not be depressed.
Yeah.
You know?
Wow.
Just to get an erection, you know, to like, probably, So you're really committing yourself to a lifetime of injections or pellets. Maybe there's new technology coming out. You know, I have a friend who played rugby and I think he had trauma to his testicles and he needs to be on TRT, and he was telling me like, oh, they're coming out with new forms of testosterone that are dosed that have peaks because your testosterone is supposed to be circadian, right? It peaks in the morning. This is why you get morning wood and erections while you're sleeping. So yeah, there maybe are more therapies out there, but I think that men need to ask themselves like, why am I doing this and is it worth it?
Yeah.
Now there's a different type of man in this equation. It's a man who goes to their doctor at 35 or 40 or 45, and they're not necessarily wanting to bodybuild. They just say, doc, I can't get as hard as I want to. I'm more fatigued. I'm gaining weight. And the doc checks and their testosterone 200.
Yeah.
There's a different use case for testosterone. I still think that in that situation, many men get prescribed testosterone too quickly because a mainstream Western medical doctor is not going to understand all of the inputs in your life that may be causing you to be hypogonadal at 35, 40, 45, 50, 55.
Right. They don't think about nutrition or lifestyle much at all, basically.
At all.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So what are the things that can tank your testosterone for a man that's not trying to bodybuild? Well, food is the first one, right? I think a great way to tank your testosterone is to not eat enough calories. It's pretty clear in the literature that if you're over fasting, if you're doing time restricted feeding, you're giving your body a signal of scarcity. And your body is not going to make testosterone. You're not making babies in the wild if you can't even find food, right? So you need to eat enough calories, but you also need to eat enough of the right type of calories because I think a great way to tank your testosterone is to eat garbage. You know, there is some small studies in humans that show that testosterone is negatively affected by seed oils. And I think you can just observationally intuit that processed food is not great for your hormones.
Of course.
At any level, whether it's oxidation of these cells in your testicles, you know, there's a lot of lipids in your testicles, right? It's a very lipid-rich environment. Sperm quality, sperm motility, these things are all negatively affected by the food you eat if you're eating garbage food.
Sure.
And conversely, they can be positively affected by eating high-quality food. And there are multiple meta-analyses now showing that animal foods in the human diet correlate with higher testosterone. Like, why are we surprised?
Yeah.
And saturated fat in the human diet correlates with higher testosterone.
Yeah.
Well, okay, great. You know, it's less likely to be oxidized. It's a signal of abundance for humans.
Something here real quick, sorry to interrupt, but just anecdotally, it's often said that oysters are an aphrodisiac.
They're high in zinc.
High in zinc, okay. I don't know if that's the case. One thing we did notice here anecdotally, actually at the farm, they hunt bear. And they make bear sausage.
Okay. I
think it's just bear meat and spices basically wrapped in a thing. When we eat that bear sausage, we both have libido boost. So is that somehow, like, if you eat certain types of animals, do you get?
Who knows? Quality of the meat, you know?
Yeah.
Who knows? I don't even know. I'd have to do the experiment and, you know, try a bear sausage and go on a date or something. I mean.
We'll hook it up.
Yeah. Quality of the meat affects human libido.
Yeah.
Oysters and libido, zinc. But you can get plenty of zinc in meat too. So I think that look, like most humans don't eat enough animal protein in general. You need probably, give or take, 1 gram of high quality animal protein per pound of body weight or goal body weight. Most humans don't eat that, especially women. And most humans don't eat a lot of red meat. They don't have a lot of zinc in their diet. So when you eat an oyster, you're like, whoa, I finally got some zinc.
Okay.
And oysters are very rich in zinc. So it's for those of us that are getting adequate amounts of zinc and we're eating a pound plus of red meat a day, it may not make a difference. That's at least my suspicion for the mechanism with oysters. But saturated fat, red meat, enough animal protein, these all support healthy hormone production at the level of testicles or the ovaries for women and men.
Got it. Sunlight?
Sunlight is probably very important. It doesn't have to be on your balls. I don't think it matters where you get it.
Boy, it is fantastic though.
I know.
The ball sunning thing is something I've picked up. It is fucking fantastic.
It feels good.
And it also gives a libido enhancement and, dare I say, I don't want to say size enhancement, but definitely blood flow enhancement.
Yeah.
Like it's actually really, really good. I really enjoy it.
I mean, I think that most men, if they experiment with this, will find it very easy to get aroused when they're in the sun.
Yes.
And
ultraviolet
light.
My dick just feels happy. Like as soon as like it's just, I don't know.
It's just like a happy dick.
It's just a happy guy.
Like, and I've done naked sunbathing with women too, and I think that they feel the same way when they get, their corresponding parts in the sun.
Yes.
It's a good thing. Like, I think this is an argument to have a farm. Like, if you don't have a place in your life where you can be in the sun naked, like, are you really, let's figure it out. Now, this has been this has been the most challenging thing for me in Miami, but
sure.
You can still
There are
hack
a couple of nude beaches here.
There are a couple of new beaches.
I haven't been, but I've heard.
There are a couple of new beaches where you can hopefully see, happy dicks. I don't know that necessarily the people you want to see naked are the
That's usually the case with nude beaches.
Yeah.
It's not the people you want to see.
It's not the people you want to see.
Yeah.
No, but I mean, they probably all have happy dicks at the new beaches, But yeah, I think sunlight is important. Lack of sunlight is a negative thing. Blue light is probably a negative thing. Cell phones are a negative thing probably because the RF, EMF right by your junk is problematic.
Is airplane mode okay?
But only if you do airplane mode right. So you have to hit the airplane icon on your phone, and then the Wi-Fi and the Bluetooth icon need to be gray, not white. You know what I'm talking about?
Gray, not white. I need to check that. Oh, no, I only get blue or, I don't know, you tell me.
Yeah, it's not off. So the blue means the Wi-Fi is actually still on, and your Bluetooth is still on. So if you hit this right now.
So you got to turn them all, no blue, basically.
See how it's gray with a line through it?
Yes.
That's off.
Okay, so Bluetooth needs to be off too.
Bluetooth, but you see how Bluetooth just went white?
Yes.
It's still on, it's just not connected. So you actually have to go to your settings now and turn Bluetooth off directly to get it off.
And then will it turn off? Well,
you'll see.
Okay. Well, when I go to Bluetooth, it just shows me that.
Yeah, so you have to turn it off like that.
Oh, okay.
Now you're not on an airplane. Now look at it. Everything's gray.
Got it.
With a line through it.
Okay.
So don't think that your phone.
You're not on airplane mode until you're on this.
So you're on
airplane mode.
That's full airplane. Yeah.
We'll do a screen recording of this.
That's important. That's very important.
Okay.
Sleep quality also affects hormones in a huge way. If you're not sleeping well,
of course. Yeah.
A lot of men I know who I've worked with over the years, they go on TRT because they just weren't sleeping well.
Okay.
They were either bartenders or they were out at night. One guy was playing in piano bars.
Yeah.
You can absolutely tank your testosterone by not sleeping well.
Okay.
I mean, you want more testosterone? Sleep.
Yeah.
It's not sexy because we're all so addicted to our devices and blue light and flashing light is addictive. We're not going to sleep early enough.
Yeah.
So that's another thing that going back to the first thing we talked about, like when I'm dating a woman, she has to be okay with me going to sleep early.
Circadian.
I'm very circadian. Yeah. It's like, look, girl, this benefits you too, trust me.
Yeah.
And so if I go to a restaurant with a woman on a date, which is not something I even like to do because it's all just a big letdown, but I'm trying to make a reservation at 6 or 5:30, and then I'm trying to still go to sleep at 9 when I'm in Miami or earlier. In Costa Rica, I'm asleep at 8 o'clock every night, basically.
Yeah, Brian said 9 p.m. was jungle midnight.
Basically, yep. Jungle midnight is 9 p.m. because the sun goes down at 6 p.m. every day in Costa Rica because you're so close to the equator. Here, the sun is setting at like 7:45 right now. Yeah. So basically I'm, outside in the sun or around, and then the sun sets and I go right to sleep.
Yeah.
Or I start winding down, and I'm just still trying to keep that circadian rhythm consistent. So switching your circadian rhythm changes, switching the time that you go to sleep can mess up your biology. if you can go to sleep at 10 o'clock and you wake up at 6 or 7 every morning and you're fine, okay, great. You don't have to go to sleep at 8 or 9, but the time you go to sleep is important, and keeping it consistent is important.
Right.
You know, getting enough sleep at night is important. I've just started messing with sleep trackers, and I don't know how accurate they are, but it is interesting, and I can tell like, okay, this kind of does correlate. You know, if I go to sleep late, it's not going to be as good.
And this is the circadian rhythm is so important because it is triggering your daily hormonal sequencing, right? That what is it, POMC or something in the morning sun? I forgot.
Yeah.
And then that is a cascade into all the other hormones.
Pro-opiomelanocortin.
Yeah.
Yep. And so this is morning sunlight.
Yeah.
Right.
So if you miss that, you're just screwed for the day.
It's not optimal for the day.
Okay.
It's a non-negotiable for me, and you know, this is the problem with changing time zones.
And non-negotiable, do you have to see the sun rise, or you just need to be outside when the sun is rising?
You just need to be outside in the morning when you wake up.
Okay.
You know, it's non-negotiable for me. I get in the sunlight in the morning first thing. And I eat first thing in the morning. I don't do intermittent fasting. I'm going to eat first thing in the morning. Yeah. I get up, I have raw milk, honey. I'll put some organs in it from the whole package for Heart and Soil. I'll put glyphosate-free honey from Lineage in it. I'll put, sometimes I put some raw meat in there if I'm feeling
in the smoothie?
Yeah, sometimes.
Wow.
I'm feeling feisty, some raw heart or something.
Okay, raw organs. Got it.
And blueberries, and so I have a morning smoothie. And I'll eat first thing in the morning. I get carbohydrates first thing in the morning. And I get sunlight first thing in the morning. And I mean, my life in Costa Rica and my life in Miami have become similar in the morning. I'm trying to spend a lot of time outside in the morning, whether it's I'm going to go to the ocean and swim. Yeah. I'm going to ride my bike, you know, a couple of blocks to a pull-up bar and do 15 or 20 minutes of outdoor pull-ups, like a mini workout to start the day. I'm going to go on the paddleboard and be in the ocean. But I want to be in the water, grounding for as long as I can in the morning. And I mean, one of the awesome things about this podcast, we're doing this outside.
Yes.
Right? And we can talk about infrared also. So we're getting, and if I'm driving somewhere in the morning, I'm keeping the windows open in the car. I'm trying to get that outdoor sunlight. Yeah. I'm trying to get the bright light into my eyes in the morning because this helps entrain the circadian rhythm in all the ways.
May I ask you one question? So I do like to train fasted in the morning. Like I like to get up and just...
Why?
I don't know. Maybe I've just habituated myself to it, but I feel a little leaner, a little hungrier, a little more driven at the gym. I do get up. I've modified it slightly because I have green tea. I guess we could talk about caffeine in a bit. Yeah. I quit caffeine for a while, but now I'm back on the green tea kick. That can be a little harsh on the stomach. Empty stomach, so sometimes I'll just eat raw butter and take green tea, and then I train on that basically.
I mean, I would just be interested in how you would feel not training fasted. I think
Can you eat a full meal and then go straight to work out?
Pretty much. Granted, my first meal of the day is a smoothie. Okay. So it's milk and honey and organs and a little bit of raw meat that's ground up with blueberries.
So it's light.
I wouldn't say it's light because I'm eating a lot. It's a big smoothie. Right. You know, it's probably
goes quick.
It's probably maybe. I mean, it's 500 cc, so it's 500 mLs. It's like a half a liter of a smoothie. It's a big smoothie that I drink in the morning. And maybe it's even more than that actually, because that's just how much milk I put in. I'm putting 500 cc's, 500 mLs of milk. Then I'm putting in volume from the blueberries. Got it. Then I'm putting in volume from the meat.
So it's a liter, probably.
It's not a liter, but it might be 3/4 of a liter.
Yeah. Okay.
And you know, and I'll get into a workout or a paddle right away. Yeah. And if I'm surfing in the morning, I might have like half a liter, you know, a little bit less, but I'm still getting a lot in. Meat is actually pretty easy on the stomach to digest. I mean, I think you could get right into a workout or give your body 20 or 30 minutes and you'll be fine.
All right.
But
so no intermittent fasting for you in general. I think we've talked about this before.
I don't do it.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't think it's good. And I think that the premise is false. What is that?
Those are the peacocks.
Oh my God, that's amazing. We got roosters, peacocks, bells, church bells. Yes. So I think that the premise of intermittent fasting is that there's some sort of lifespan extension, which is not true. You know, I don't think it carries over to humans. It kind of starts to, you know, tiptoe into the world of caloric restriction. I think that's a very interesting conversation around lifespan extension. Okay. We can talk about that in a second, but intermittent fasting, potentially negative for sex hormones, which is a bad thing for humans. Yeah. You want to give your body signals of abundance, not signals of scarcity. And then I think that the premise is that it's somehow important for autophagy, but it just doesn't hold up to scrutiny. Like your body will do house cleaning even when you are not fasting. Yeah. And most of us have a 12-hour window overnight where you're sleeping. So you do not have to be fasted to have autophagy happen in your body. That's complete bollocks. Like, it just doesn't work that way. There's evidence that many of the nutrients that we eat, glucose, triggers autophagy in some pathways in the liver. So eating can trigger autophagy. Your body needs nutrients to do house cleaning, but I think people love this metaphor, this analogy, like, oh, I don't want to be in my house when the house cleaners are there, right? So I'm not going to eat while I'm doing autophagy. It doesn't work like that. You know, you can be in the house and the cleaners can be, cleaners are always in your house.
Well, I do that every day, yeah.
The cleaners are always in your house. You know, your house is complex enough that you're always doing house cleaning. You're always doing immune surveillance. You're always doing autophagy.
Yeah.
And this idea that you should fast all the time, look at the people who do that.
Yeah.
They're going to fucking lose to you or me in a fight.
Yeah.
You know, they're skinny, they're weak,
well, they typically, they also aren't typically animal-based that too much. I mean, sometimes they are, but
it goes with plant-based thinking.
Yeah.
You know, which is like, oh, you're stacking, mistakes, in my opinion. Yeah. You're not eating animal protein, which has so many unique nutrients: creatine, carnitine, anserine, taurine, CoQ10, K2. You know, you're calorically restricting and you're also intermittent fast. It doesn't make sense.
So sleep, sunlight, I assume physical training is obviously good for the testosterone.
Yeah, don't overtrain.
Okay.
You know,
what specific forms? I mean, I know you're big into surfing, but are there some forms that are better than others?
Some form of resistance training, I think, affects sex hormones positively.
Okay.
And you can do too much, right? Yeah. So chronic cardio, over-exercising will definitely tank your testosterone.
High intensity interval?
If you do too much, you will tank. Okay. Yeah, it's powerful medicine.
Listen, and when we say overtraining, is this a matter of listening to the body? You just want to train to fatigue, but not exhaustion.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is one of the potential arguments for one of the sleep trackers is your HRV and your recovery index or your
heart rate variability.
Heart rate variability or your readiness.
Okay.
So you can see this. So when your readiness goes down, your body's like, well, I'm kind of overtrained, right? So, it's interesting. I don't do much sauna anymore, but I was thinking I should do a little more sauna. I want to get some detox, but I did sauna and cold plunge 2 days in a row at Anatomy in Miami. And I'm not doing crazy cold plunging. I'll go in the sauna. I don't know how hot their sauna is, maybe 165 or 170.
Sounds
it has infrared plus hot. So it's like a Finnish plus infrared. And I'll go in for 15 minutes. I'll get hot, I'm sweating. And then I go in the cold plunge. And the cold plunge there, I think, is too cold. I think that I like cold plunges now around 50 to 55.
Yeah, because that one's around 40, I think.
Yeah, I don't like the super cold ones. Yeah. So I'll go in it, man, I'm not winning any awards. Maybe 45 seconds, Okay. I'll just do contrast, maybe a minute max. Then I'll go back in the sauna, and then I'll finish on 20 seconds of cold. I'm just doing contrast. I'm not actually trying to overdo cold therapy. Okay. And I see it in my readiness score. My readiness score goes down the next day. Because my body's like, hey, you got in a sauna and your cortisol is up. Like maybe over time my body would adjust, and if I'm doing sauna 3 times a week chronically, but having not done sauna and coming to sauna, my readiness score went down.
Wow.
I thought, I'm trying to do something good, but my body's feeling the sort of whatever after effects of this. Yeah. So just, pay attention to what's going on in your life.
So why is surfing such a keystone in your life? It's like you're getting, I guess, the sun, you're getting the physical movement, I guess you're getting probably a meditation out there as well. Grounding. It just ticks all the boxes for hormonal optimization?
Yeah, but surfing is also not utilitarian. Surfing is just fun. Yeah. It's just enjoyable. Right. And so you can't quantify that. Right. Right? Like, what do you do in your life that's just fun? Yeah. That's important. Yeah. I want joy. That's the point of living. Yes. I want to spend time. The best memories that I have in my life thus far are time spent in nature with people I love. Yeah. So let's do more of those. Yeah. Right. And, definitely I'm going to have a better surf session if I'm with my friends. So, but even if I'm surfing solo, I still remember it and I feel good. But yeah, I mean, anytime that I do something in nature that is dynamic, I feel differently during the day. So yesterday morning, I went out in the ocean. It was really choppy and I went on this race paddleboard and I was just paddling around and getting super humbled because I don't really paddle much. But I came back and I thought, oh man, that was fun. It was just play. I'm in nature, I'm connecting. You cannot quantify this. I'm sure if you looked at the metrics in my body, you could quantify it. Yeah. But there's no box to tick here. Right. It's just like, I want to have fun.
You're getting into that high vibrational brain state, whatever it is.
Even a flow state, I'm trying to get into flow state. Like, I want to have fun. Right. And if I'm not having fun, what am I doing? Yeah. That's why I surf. It just happens to come with community, grounding, sunlight, circadian rhythm, activity. Yeah.
Making a really good pitch.
It's an amazing thing.
All right, so to finish beating up on the guys then. So these guys that are so the women are taking these enhancements to look better for one another, basically, because well, men don't seem to prefer it as much, but obviously that's a generalization. Men are taking these steroids and whatever to get bigger muscles to impress one another, because women aren't so into that either.
Maybe not.
So what's our advice to these guys? Especially, I mean, I guess there is an argument to be made if you're 60, I don't know what age, 50, 60, 70 years old, that TRT might be useful, perhaps?
I know people in that age range who take it, and I think that there's a different argument there. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't take it. I'm not averse to it in the future, but when I do my testosterone's still around 800.
Right. So as long as you keep it up through your current lifestyle, you would just basically try to never use it.
Try to never use it.
But if you ever dipped at a certain level, you would consider it.
If you ever dip in your 60s or 70s, you're like, okay, maybe, right?
Sure.
Having said that, I have had clients in the past, I think he's 67 or 68, and his testosterone is like 850.
Yeah.
Right? So I know there's at least an N of one, like, who you can have a testosterone of 800 plus in your late 60s without enhancement.
My doctor said the same thing about a guy, and he lives apparently in the Colombian mountain tops. Like, he's a farmer basically, so he's outside in Colombia all the time doing stuff outside. But yeah, he's 70 or 80 years old and has an 800 plus testosterone.
It's possible.
Yeah.
There is this assumption in Western medicine that, it declines as you age.
Yeah.
Maybe not. Let's see.
Yeah.
You know,
depends on the lifestyle.
It depends on the lifestyle. And look, not everybody can move to Colombia and live that lifestyle. Not everybody can move to Costa Rica and live this lifestyle. So I mean, I know guys in their 50s who take it. I'm like, look, okay, it's your choice, right? But when somebody's 25, 35, 45, I think you just have to ask the question, why is it down in the first place?
Got it.
And are there other things you need to correct?
Because if there's lower hanging fruit, basically.
Well, lower, and it's all contributing, right? Yeah. So if the reason you're taking it is for health and longevity, long term, you better correct your sleep issue if that's contributing to this. If you just band-aid it with testosterone and you're not fixing the fact that you're not sleeping well, you're gonna have problems.
Got it.
Or other things, or nutrient deficiency, or lack of sunlight, all the things.
Got it, okay.
One of my highest health priorities is keeping my brain in top shape. To take care of my brain power, I do many things, such as striving to read, write, exercise, and meditate daily. One of the latest tools in my brain power toolkit is MindLab Pro. MindLab Pro is a nootropic supplement that is scientifically proven to enhance your brain power. When I take MindLab Pro, my mind feels like it has a better grip on the world, my thinking is more lucid, and the articulation of my speech is radically improved. MindLab Pro has been tested in rigorous, double-blind, placebo-controlled human trials and has been proven to enhance brain power for users in every age group. MindLab Pro is an advanced formulation of 11 nootropic ingredients and is backed by research from over 1,400 human trials conducted over the past 32 years. So if you're looking to enhance your brain power, MindLab Pro is an excellent solution. Go to mindlabpro.com/breedlove to start enhancing your brain power today. Again, that's mindlabpro.com/breedlove. Knowing when to buy Bitcoin can feel complicated, and knowing how much to buy can be overwhelming, and getting started can be a headache, but it doesn't have to be. That's exactly why I recommend Coinbits, because it solves these major blockers and it's the easiest way to buy Bitcoin. With Coinbits' Round Ups feature, you can automatically convert your spare change into Bitcoin while you shop. For example, when you buy a coffee for $3.50, the extra 50 cents is rounded up and it goes straight into Bitcoin. Here's why that's a huge win for you, because you don't have to be a tech wizard or try to time the market just right with Bitcoin. With Coinbits Roundups, you simply set it, shop, and stack sats. And you can set this up in under 2 minutes. Just visit the website, connect your card, and boom, you're buying a little Bitcoin every time you spend money. So stop wasting your time with complicated exchanges or confusing shitcoin apps. Coinbits simplifies your Bitcoin savings strategy. So go to coinbits.app/breedlove. Again, that's coinbits.app/breedlove.
Peptides. I will frame the whole thing like I don't really think about this a lot, but I do have concerns about it. I don't think we have long-term studies on peptides. And the effects of the peptide go away immediately when you stop taking them, right? So, ipamorelin, tesamorelin, the GnRH analogs, I would never do it, right? I haven't done it because something about it doesn't feel right to me, but maybe it's completely safe, but do I want to mess with, growth hormone, releasing hormone? Like, I don't know, right? BBC 157 is a very interesting one. Probably a lot
That's the only one I've taken. Actually.
It's probably a lot of valuable uses for that. People don't really chronically take that. They cycle it. The oral dosing may be beneficial for the gut. BBC 157 naturally occurs in stomach lining. So this is the peptides get me thinking about organs too. Because there are unique peptides in heart. There are unique peptides in liver. There are unique peptides in testicles. There are unique peptides in stomach, BBC 157. There are unique peptides in the brain. So I think we're only at the tip of the iceberg here in terms of what they do. And it's a very good segue. And that's one of the reasons I'm so excited to have built Heart and Soil. It's like, okay, look, when you desiccate something, when you freeze dry it, you're preserving the peptides. The peptides in our supplements appear to be bioactive. So like, okay, is this one of the reasons that taking an organ helps the corresponding? Who knows, right? So I think there's a lot more there. I would rather eat an organ
take something
than take an injection. But I did use BBC 157 for a short amount of time. I was surfing in Africa, and it was not a big wave, but I went over the falls, and my head hit the sand straight on. I could have paralyzed myself. And I took it for maybe 3 or 4 days, and then I just stopped, thinking maybe it would help with healing in my neck. But otherwise, I haven't taken anything, and I worry about the ipamorelin, the tesamorelin, But again, that's coming from a perspective that's fairly surface. So.
Yeah. So we just don't have enough data, because how new are they?
Pretty new.
Like the past decade, basically.
Yeah, definitely the past decade. Okay. They do have therapeutic use. They're not correcting the root cause of anything.
Right, but we don't know the risk profile yet because we just don't have enough.
They certainly have risk. I think anything like that is going to have a risk. I mean, just look at Ozempic or Wegovy.
Right.
So look at any of the peptides people are using for obesity now. There are risks in terms of GI side effects, vision side effects, all kinds of things that can be positive.
That actually, I was wrong. I've taken BPC 157. I also took. I did tirzepatide for a little while as a biohack to see what it did. And dude, there's got to be risk associated with that because it crushed my appetite. And the other feeling that I really didn't enjoy about it was it seemed like it made food less interesting, but that seemed to carry over to like life in general, like just took away the zest for life. And so I got off that after a very short period. That was, although it's very good for suppressing appetite, I could see where it would cause you to lose a lot of weight. I don't think it was worth the psychological trade-off.
Yeah, I mean, look, like if you want to lose weight, improve food quality.
Yeah.
You can lose weight not eating, and then you die. And then you become weak, right?
Yeah.
Like you can fast forever and you'll lose weight, but you'll eventually die and you'll consume your organs and you'll consume your muscle and you'll lose strength and you'll lose resilience and you'll lose bone density. So it's dangerous.
Yeah. All right. You broke this one for me, I think, I put up a reel about me doing my ball sunning and taking my methylene blue and reading my books one day, and you commented and said, hey man, lose the methylene blue. It's not all it's cracked up to be. And methylene blue has been going through kind of a moment recently on social media. Tons of people were advocating for it, and then it seemed like all of a sudden the tide went the other way. People were saying it's kind of worthless. So where do you fall in the methylene blue camp?
There's a very, very small portion of the population where it might be beneficial. And I think 97+% of people who are taking it are harming themselves.
Okay.
So the way methylene blue works is it's an electron donor. It moves electrons in the electron transport chain in the mitochondria. And for the very, very small portion of the population that has a block in the mitochondrial electron transport chain, methylene blue may be helpful because it can circumvent the block.
Got it.
So the way that we make energy as humans is we eat food. That food is essentially a source of electrons. Those electrons get passed down the electron transport chain in the mitochondria. That movement of electrons creates a proton motive force that moves protons from the matrix of the mitochondria into the intermembrane space. Mitochondria have two membranes. So they have an inner membrane and an outer membrane, probably reminiscent of a sort of symbiotic event, an endosymbiotic event, millions, of years in our history, as hundreds of millions of years ago, maybe billions of years ago, where a eukaryotic cell engulfed a bacteria. This is the leading theory, the endosymbiosis. So we all may be you know, a combination of a eukaryotic cell engulfing a bacteria. Mitochondria don't have a nuclear membrane, so that's a prokaryotic cell in the hypothesis, like a bacteria prokaryotic, versus a eukaryotic cell. We have a membrane-bound nucleus. Anyway, mitochondria have two membranes. In the inner mitochondrial membrane are the complexes that form the apparatus of the electron transport chain. The movement of electrons that you get from your food down the chain moves protons from the middle of the mitochondria, the matrix, to the inner membrane space. Those protons then move down their concentration gradient through a microscopic nanomotor that makes ATP.
Wow.
It's incredible.
That's so cool.
It's so crazy how this happens. So if those electrons don't move as far, they create less proton motive force and you get less ATP produced. That's what methylene blue does. So methylene blue, assuming you and I are healthy mitochondrially, which I think is a pretty safe assumption, it decreases the amount of ATP that your mitochondria produce. Decreases because it's decreasing the movement of those mitochondria down the chain. Okay. Also, methylene blue is...
But if you had a block, it would increase it.
If you had a block, it would increase it relatively, right? Because if you hit a block, you're very low. It could circumvent the block.
Yeah.
Most people don't have blocks in their electron transport chain. These are rare genetic mutations or very advanced mitochondrial disease, very advanced Parkinson's or Alzheimer's or other movement disorders, potentially therapeutic if you can't reverse the block. There are some things you can do in your life that will block the mitochondrial electron transport chain, like cyanide, which kills you. Right. And methylene blue is not a therapy for cyanide, but it would help. And sometimes it is used in that way because, it could potentially, it's part of the mechanism maybe, but it's not the preferred treatment for cyanide toxicity. It's a preferred treatment for methemoglobinemia, which is a different thing. So methylene blue, I think, is confusing for people because it also is an antidepressant, quote unquote. It affects your neurotransmitters. It is an MAOA inhibitor. So monoamine oxidase A, it's a strong inhibitor of A and a partial inhibitor of B, I believe. So MAOA and MAOB. So monoamine oxidase A and monoamine oxidase B. And these degrade, they are monoamine oxidases. Serotonin is a monoamine neurotransmitter in contrast to catecholamine neurotransmitters like dopamine or norepinephrine. But it degrades monoamine neurotransmitters. So when you take methylene blue, you are increasing the amount of serotonin at the level of the synapse in your neurons. Now it's more complex than just a serotonin deficiency for depression, but anyone that's ever taken MDMA, ecstasy, any of the serotonergic things, LSD, increasing the amount of serotonin, and they're not pure serotonergic, but they have mixed, increasing the amount of serotonin in your synapses makes you feel a certain way, right?
Yes.
It does.
Of course.
The serotonin hypothesis of depression has generally been disproven, and I think depression is mostly neuroinflammation in the brain, which is probably connected to a systemic level of inflammation, probably connected to all sorts of things in our environment. But if you have more serotonin in your synapses, you will feel differently. And you can even get serotonin syndrome, which can be fatal. So if you mix methylene blue with ecstasy or an antidepressant that's an SSRI or St. John's wort or rhodiola, there are things we do that affect serotonin in our brains, and you can become toxic. Now, most people are not getting that level with methylene blue.
But if you did high doses of both of these things, you could be in trouble.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Wow. Okay. People should be thinking about that because I think a lot of people are using methylene blue as just like, take it every day. It's great for you. And then if you're also doing that and going to a festival or something on the weekend and taking a bunch of MDMA, then that could be
you
a
could
problem.
definitely get serotonin syndrome.
Wow.
And so, I think that the benefits people are feeling from methylene blue are neurotransmitters, not energy production.
Yeah.
So look, like you can take drugs, you can take ecstasy. I've never taken it, by the way, but I've done mushrooms a couple times, but that's it. But you can take ecstasy and feel super hyped, and you can microdose it every day and be like, I feel great. Methylene blue makes you feel great, but it's not actually improving your physiology. It's just changing the composition of your neurotransmitters.
Got it. Okay.
And then it has other side effects. It does turn your brain blue.
Yeah, well, I was going to say,
high doses.
Obviously turns your pee blue.
Yeah.
I have destroyed so many white shorts and white pants. It's
You're
not even
peeing
funny.
in your pants?
Not peeing, but like you pee and then you dribble. You know?
Yeah,
you get
that's
a little
hilarious.
bit of dribbles, and then my wife's like, what the fuck? You completely ruined. So, yeah, anyways. White clothing, white pants, white shorts, and methylene blue.
So don't take methylene blue and then pee in a pool.
Oh, yeah, that's true, too.
You
yeah.
pee and
it
be like,
would
what the
show blue. Yeah, of course.
I've never done it.
What about, okay, the other argument for methylene blue was improving photobiomodulation when you're doing red light therapy and things like this. Is there nothing there?
I just think that the downsides outweigh any potential upsides because you're changing the mitochondrial ATP production.
Okay. So what about red light therapy just on its own?
That's great.
Amazing.
Yeah, you do it every morning and every evening when you're in the sun. I mean, there is more red light from a relative perspective in morning and evening sunlight. There is absolute more red light during the middle of the day, but there's, you know, the relative amounts of red, infrared, UV change as the day goes on, as the day changes. But yeah, I think red light is great. I think infrared light is valuable.
Yeah.
So different wavelengths, like, you know, 650 versus 850, give or take.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think red light and infrared are valuable. You can get them when you're outside. And to our previous discussion, I think there is some evidence that red light therapy can help with fine lines and wrinkles and collagen production in the face.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
So do you do it, if you're outside in the sun, you're getting optimal circadian everything, you would still do red light therapy on top of that? Or is this just a supplement?
We don't know.
I mean, like because I have a red light sauna here. It feels good. I get up, I like to do it first thing in the morning. Just sit in that for 20 to 30 minutes, meditate. It's like a great way to start the day. And then I'll jump in either cold pool or cold plunge.
Yeah.
But if I'm getting sun all day, do you think that
it's a good question. I think maybe there are unique benefits for skin.
Okay.
Maybe.
And it's okay to do it on your face then, because the guy that built it originally, I was talking, they said focus on your body.
Really?
So like I had it built like to where it starts at my knee and goes up to my neck, so I can stand and kind of rotisserie chicken on it.
Uh-huh.
But I could also sit down and get it on my face a little bit, but they said don't get too much on your face too long. I thought the brain, actually, you don't want too much of it on your brain for too long.
I'm not aware. Maybe I'm
not, I don't know either.
Yeah. A lot of people, this isn't really that valid, but a lot of people put it on their face.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So red light's fine, but you can do it without, you don't need methylene blue, basically.
You don't need the methylene blue, no.
All right. We're almost to the finish line here. We gotta always credit you. I was all the way down to beef and salt, my elimination diet, like as eliminated as I could possibly be, but I was still drinking coffee.
Uh-huh.
And I always tell the story as if I was calling you, but I actually think we were texting. I was in Hawaii and we were texting back and forth. And you're like, yeah, man. I was like, I've done the elimination diet. I'm still feeling like shit. I'm still having this inflammation in my gut. Like, what else can I do?
You mostly gut symptoms is what you were having.
Yeah, lower right quadrant. That's where it flares up when I would have, like, if I ate foods that weren't beef and salt, it was really bothering me there. Mm-hmm. I guess that's the locus of the dysbiosis, something like that.
The lower right quadrant is the ileocecal valve, so who knows? Yeah.
So I haven't exactly completely figured it out, but at the time, I was like, look, I'm on beef, salt, and coffee.
Yeah.
And you were like, you've got to quit the coffee. And it was so difficult, actually. Just not... The decision to let go of coffee was so difficult because I felt like it was the last thing that I had. It got me out of bed in the morning and it was motivating me to work and all these things. But so when I finally made that decision, week 1, exhausted. Week 2, emotionally difficult. Like I actually felt like, I don't know, it was losing the ritual it felt like I'd lost a friend of some kind. So that was strange and unexpected. And then week 3 really started to come back online, like had good energy. I noticed too, when my energy came back online, I didn't get that late afternoon slump.
Yeah.
I used to like lay on the couch and need to yawn for 30 minutes every day for some reason. I just thought that was a thing. That went away and I just had good sustained energy. I went caffeine free for a while after that, but then I've now got back onto the green tea. So I guess I'm falling into the caffeine trap again.
Slippery slope. Yeah, let's talk about coffee.
Let's talk about coffee because everyone's addicted to coffee.
But your symptoms got better when you did that.
My symptoms did get better, a lot better. It stopped irritating my gut. And when I was just on beef and salt, like I felt like a lot of healing was able to take place. I've made a lot of progress with my condition. I was sharing with you in the gym the other day. I'm still sensitive to carbs, like especially if I eat too much of them or eat the wrong kinds. I feel not good.
Yeah.
So still dealing with that, but other than that, inflammation's largely suppressed.
Better. So that's interesting. So coffee is, the roasted water from the roasted coffee beans. It's a seed.
Which is how you put it, actually. You were like, you can't have hot bean juice on your gut, bro, or something like that.
Yeah. I mean, it is roasted, so it's burned seeds, water. There are ways to mitigate most of what I'm going to say, but there's issues with pesticides. So you can get an organic coffee. Issues with mold. All grains get moldy. So you can look at rice and get mycotoxins. You can look at wheat and get mycotoxins. Even beans, like grains, things that are dry like that, they're going to get mycotoxins unless you're really careful. So you're going to get mycotoxins. When you roast the beans, you do get acrylamide. Anytime you burn or brown anything, you get acrylamide. So toast has acrylamide.
That's a carcinogen?
Bagels, potentially. I think it's a class 2A or 2B carcinogen according to the WHO. I mean, acrylamide is felt to be a carcinogen. The body can handle some of it, but you are getting acrylamide.
Yeah.
I just want people to understand that. If you're getting a bagel, it's going to have acrylamide. Coffee has acrylamide. And then there's the issue of caffeine. And the caffeine thing is tricky because caffeine is very dopaminergic, which is why I would just add the slightest bit of caution to even green tea. It's interesting the way you described it. The second week where you felt like you had lost a friend, you're essentially going through dopamine withdrawal, I believe.
Okay.
Because dopamine is reinforcing. So Huberman's talked a lot about this. I've had conversations with him directly about this. When you drink coffee, you are getting dopamine. Anything you do with dopamine reinforces that behavior.
Okay.
So you could leverage coffee in a positive way by always drinking coffee when you go to the gym. You will have positively reinforced going to the gym, but we're also becoming addicted to the coffee.
Got it.
So the coffee is the source of the caffeine. So you're reinforcing drinking coffee because that's where you're getting your dopamine hit.
And I was using that for gym and work, basically. It was my energy source. Yeah.
It was maybe your motivation source? Would
maybe. Yeah. It could just be a belief structure, which it is at some point, because after I got off it, I was still working, going to the gym.
Yeah, but it makes it easier in some ways because you're getting that dopamine. You're giving yourself a dopamine hit. Now, the flip side is, your body is adjusting to that dopamine, and then when you come off, you have to readjust. And so, and there is an argument that, where should you get your dopamine from, or should you not over dopaminize yourself, right? Is there an argument to working out sometimes without music? If you're always stacking dopamine, again, this is sort of cribbing Huberman.
It's like the cheap dopamine as the devil kind of thing.
Yeah. So if you're stacking dopamine and you're saying, I'm working out at the gym, I'm drinking coffee, I'm doing pre-workout, and I'm listening to heavy metal or some music, it's just dopamine. Like, you're kind of, the potential is, how does it affect you long term? Do you then have some compensation for that later, where you're not as motivated, or you have trouble motivating without those things? So I have had coffee in my life. I haven't had it probably in 15 years, and I just prefer not to use it at all.
And no caffeine, no green tea.
Nothing for me.
Yeah.
Green tea has less caffeine, but again, it's still dopaminergic. So you're gonna,
Right.
Green tea, what was it?
Is the theanine, is that helping with the caffeine? Because I've heard that's what's in green tea that makes it less.
There is L-theanine in green tea, and it may decrease some of the jitters from the caffeine. I'm remembering something that I was talking about. So there's a lot of, was it microplastics? There are some problems with tea that people need to look out for. Was it microplastics or mycotoxins? I think it was microplastics, but there was...
Probably in the tea bags.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of microplastics in tea bags. So you have to be careful with tea bags. You do not want to have the plastic tea bags, because they actually make plastic tea bags now, the triangular plastic tea bags.
No, I'm drinking well, you saw it earlier, the iced green tea with no sugar in it. So it's pre-bottled.
It's in a can.
Well, it's in a glass bottle.
Oh, okay, it's in a glass bottle, but you don't know. Yeah, you don't know how they're brewing it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if people want to do a green tea or a jasmine green tea or something in a sort of like the loose leaf tea and the metal
traditional diffuser thing. Yeah.
That's probably the least problematic in terms of microplastics. But I was really shocked to see how many microplastics were being released from tea bags.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's hard to make the equation, right? Is a net positive for humans? There's some studies showing benefits to green tea. You are getting caffeine. It is giving you a dopamine hit. Use it for the good. It's not as much as coffee.
Yeah.
So anyway, but
trade-offs.
If it doesn't bother your gut, you're moving in the right direction. And just to kind of give people a little more context to what we were talking about at the gym, because you were talking about this and you said, the getting rid of the coffee helped my gut. To me, clinically, it sounds like you still have some SIBO. some small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, which is just a really shitty catch-all term for dysbiosis.
Yeah.
And so what I recommended to you from here moving forward is do a DNA test on your stool. So a GI map, quantitative PCR, and look what's there. And look, I think we all had antibiotics when we were kids. We've all been exposed to things in our environment that might negatively affect
vaccines.
Who knows? Who knows? And so I think we all maybe have some gut repair to do. You can do a colostrum, it might help. You ever done colostrum?
I have, yeah. I use you guys stuff.
Great, yeah, the heart and soil colostrum.
And again, there has been progress. I don't want to act like it's been to zero. There's been progress, but the carb intolerance is still there. And then also I hear from a lot of guys, because I'm 39, I'm almost 40. There's a lot of guys that do become less tolerant to carbohydrates as they age. So I don't know.
In terms of gut stuff or in terms of like blood sugar swings, or what's the symptom?
Well, I don't know their symptoms. I just know they say they feel less good about eating. They don't feel as good when they eat carbs as when they eat more ketogenic. So a lot of guys do carb cycling. For me, it's kind of I'll get the lower I can feel bloated, let's put it that way, feel puffy. I can look, I'm not super lean, I'm not like you, but I look a lot leaner. And then if I eat carbs, 24 hours later, I look like a different person. It's like I'm kind of puffy. And then I get the joint sort of stiffness and aching. Like when I move from a fixed position after a while, it's like joints are kind of stiff and achy.
Let's just clarify for people, because carbs is a colloquial term.
Yeah.
And carbs is short for carbohydrates. And so fruit has carbohydrates, honey has carbohydrates, squash has carbohydrates, but colloquially, when people say carbs, they usually mean pasta, bread.
Correct.
Grains.
It's all fruit or honey for me. I don't, no bread, no carbs.
Right.
I will say that sweet potatoes, which is like one of the vegetables that I will eat, those are actually the worst. If I eat those, I feel the worst.
Interesting.
Citrus fruit and raw honey seem to be the best.
Okay. Yeah.
In terms of less symptoms versus more symptoms.
Yeah, so I wonder if there's still some dysbiosis, because I have heard people say that even with fruit and honey, they get GI symptoms like bloating. Okay, you think there's some dysbiosis there? Try and fix that. But when you're talking about these guys that you've talked to who said, I don't feel as good when I eat carbs, I wonder if they're meaning pasta, bread, rice, grains versus carbohydrates. I don't often talk to men or women who say they don't feel good eating fruit or honey, but occasionally. And so the main carbohydrates that I use in my diet now are squash. Spaghetti squash with butter is amazing. Squash, fruit, and honey. And milk has lactose, so it would be a carbohydrate. And I'm pretty active now, and so I personally will do 200, 300 plus grams of carbohydrates a day. And I feel great on that.
Amazing.
Better from when I was keto and carnivore, when I was getting muscle cramps, electrolyte insufficiency, heart palpitations. Testosterone goes from 800 to 500. It didn't completely tank my libido, but I don't want to see that in my labs.
I did have the cramping and stuff when I was pure carnivore.
Yeah, absolutely.
Had to drink a lot more electrolytes. So that's...
Insulin is valuable. So people really give insulin a bad rap, but insulin is a peptide hormone produced by the pancreas that gives a signal to the kidneys to hold on to electrolytes. So your body will hold on to sodium, and once it holds on to sodium, it kind of holds on to all the corresponding electrolytes, potassium, magnesium, everything, calcium, everything is connected in the kidney. If you're wasting sodium, you're not gonna hold on to anything, and you're gonna have a lot of electrolyte insufficiencies. And you see this sometimes in people on keto, not everyone. Sometimes people just cannot hold on to their electrolytes. They're just salt. They're just taking so many things. And that was where I got to with carnivore. So it helped a lot of things for me. My eczema, I kind of discovered that some of the foods that we think of as healthy are triggering my eczema, which is the original reason that I did carnivore. And then I started getting electrolyte issues, and I thought, how do I mitigate this? And I got to kind of back up, do the 3-point turn, come back. I went too far, added carbohydrates back, which caused some cognitive dissonance in the beginning. And now I think like, oh God, it was the best thing I've ever done. Just in terms of everything, really.
And this is the transition from Carnivore MD to
Paul Saladino MD.
Paul Saladino MD. Awesome. All right, I want you to...
Animal-based MD.
I want to ask you one last thing, but before I do that, will you please destroy aluminum cans for me in the audience?
Yeah, so did you see the reel that I did recently about the paper cups?
I missed it.
So I had a paper cup from Starbucks, and I said, you think this is a paper cup? It's actually a plastic cup. And you can put that paper cup in hot water for 2 or 3 hours. And then you can literally peel the paper out of the cup, and you can see that it's a plastic cup. It looks like a condom, So inside of your paper cups is a plastic lining. And so especially a Starbucks cup, which is getting hot
liquid
coffee.
Jeez.
Right? Okay. The same is with aluminum cans. You can put an aluminum can in sulfuric acid. And there's video of this. I've seen this video and used it on my reels. You can take an aluminum can, you can put it on sulfuric acid to dissolve the aluminum, and you pull out a bag of plastic. So your aluminum cans are lined with plastic, whether it's your water can, your soda can, your sparkling water can, whatever. It's lined with plastic. And the problem is that anything in that plastic is leaching into the fluids, whether it's BPA, BPS, BPE, forever chemicals, microplastics. This is probably the biggest problem with soup cans. Yeah. Because when they fill a soup can, they put the liquid in there hot.
Oh, wow.
So you're putting hot liquid in a soup can,
and then it's
sitting there on the shelf for months or years. So think about what you're getting when you're eating soup. Now, a soda can, who knows how long those are on the shelf? Years. They're not filling it warm. It's probably not as bad, but it's not a great thing either. So look, nothing's perfect. I was looking at another property the other day here in Miami, and the woman showing me the property handed me like a paper carton of water. And I said, well, it's Tetra Pak. That's lined with plastic too. So it's everywhere. And so you either have to, solution is travel with a stainless steel water bottle or drink out of glass.
Got it.
These
are okay, right?
As far as I can tell, those are okay. And Mountain Valley shows that if we trust them, and we have to have some trust or we can't even move in the world. They show their COA and it looks pretty good in their water. Some bottled water in glass is not that good.
Okay. Well, that's good. All right, we're going to switch completely to that. I have been on the sparkling water in a can, but I guess I needed Paul. Actually, I just learned the other day, so this transitions to my next point. We had Paul Keating here.
Homies.
I didn't know your nickname was Salad.
I mean, I don't know.
It's one of those like close friend names. Yeah, that sort of like is not what you represent at all. So anyways, that was funny. He told me you didn't pick up surfing until your early 40s, actually.
Yeah, it's true.
So there's hope for me still. I still want to catch the surfing bug.
You could start surfing before I did.
I'm committed to coming down to Costa Rica and spending a month down there. I think I'm just going to go out every day for a month.
Well, I surf every day in Costa Rica, so you'll be with us every day.
Beautiful. Yeah. I think that's probably the best way to catch the bug. I did it in Hawaii, but I would just do like kind of weekends and then work.
No, you can't do that. You got to surf every day. It's a lifestyle. It's a religion. Yeah.
Okay.
It's all the things.
How much has your life changed pre-surfing Paul to post-surfing Paul? Because it's also mixed up with all of your animal-based / abundance journey as well.
Yeah. I mean, the timing. I mean, surfing. Before surfing, I was a skier. So I loved being in the mountains and skiing powder. So I had joy in that flow state from skiing. And I started surfing probably 6 or 7 years ago. And just in those 6 or 7 years have been very formative and dynamic for me in general. They didn't necessarily have to do with surfing, but those have been a massive 7 years because, 7 years ago, I was in my residency at the University of Washington. That was like when I started the carnivore diet, when I wrote the book, when I started my podcast. I've only been doing this health stuff for 7 years. Before that, I was in medical school.
Wow.
Yeah. Before that, I was in medical school and, was just had some sense of holistic medicine and root cause medicine, but hadn't really thought about diet in the same way that I think about it now. So it's been a late to life journey for me. I've been thinking about food for a long time. And even in medical school, I thought about food and I was drinking raw milk, but I wasn't thinking about it the way I think about it now.
But tell me about like the internal soul journey experience of going from that, because a lot of people, most people, 99.9% of people are on that kind of traditional path, whatever that is, cubicle, corporate ladder, whatever. I think a lot of people increasingly aspire to more of this holistic, nature-based lifestyle. How has the actual experience going from one world into the other been for you?
Yeah, so you got to remember that out of college, I spent 6 years in the wilderness, essentially.
Okay.
Right, so I had my wilderness sort of inoculation very early.
Got it.
I got vaccinated with wilderness early in my life. That's a good one of those injections. I spent 3.5 months on the Pacific Crest Trail. That changed me as a human, unquestionably. Then I was not always in the wilderness, but skiing and searching skiing and ski bumming, which meant that I would ski in the resort. On the powder days, I would go ski out of the bounds, or I would go out the gates or backcountry ski when there was powder. So I spent a lot of time in the mountains
Yeah.
before I went to PA school. So before I went to medical school, I went to PA school and I was in cardiology for 4 years as a physician assistant. And then I went back to medical school. So so I'm going into medical school thinking in the back of my mind, I'm already kind of different. I'm already kind of fortunate to have been inoculated with wild a little bit. And and I think that made the biggest difference for me. Like I honestly think, because my family, I love them, they're in the box thinkers, right? And so what I would say to people is, if you want to change your life, go into the woods. Like get into nature and this is gonna sound really weird, but let nature just like come into you.
Yeah.
Go for swims in the ocean, like go far out in the ocean, come to Costa Rica and surf, like go into real wilderness, get as far into wilderness as you can and let it just seep into you and then see what happens to the way that you think about the world.
Interesting.
And that's, I think, because it all has to happen in your brain, right? It's all how you see the world.
Right.
And I think it happened early on for me. And then everything I came in contact with after that, I thought, doesn't sit right with me. It doesn't work.
Got it.
I don't think about it that way. So it wasn't that like I discovered.
But so you had nature immersion early on, and that became your frame of reference for all these other experiences.
When I look back, I think so. I didn't realize it at the time.
Yeah.
But when I look back on the arc of my life, I think that's the way it works.
Okay, so in the prescription you're giving for nature immersion, like is this time? Is this intensity? Is it all the above?
All the above,
just
as much as you can.
Just get into nature as much as you can. Camping, surfing.
The biggest dose possible.
Okay.
I don't know if there's a dose I don't think there's a big enough dose. Look, like Chris McCann lives into the wild, probably too much, right? But he's living in a bus by himself, and I think it was more loneliness. He ate the wrong type of seed from like a wild potato.
Oh, this is the movie, Into the
Into the
Wild.
Wild. That's like a little bit too much.
Yeah.
I think we need community, so you can overdose nature if you are lonely.
Sure.
But otherwise, I don't think there's too much of a dose. So get as far into nature for as long as you can, and that's going to look different for every person. I mean, so at the end of May this month, I don't know when this podcast is coming out, I'm doing an animal-based gathering in Costa Rica. I have a nonprofit that I started, the Animal-Based Nutrition Research Foundation. We want to fund research in the space, but we also want to bring people together. So the nonprofit is hosting a gathering where I live in Costa Rica, where Paul Keating is. And that's a start for people. And I hope if people want to do that, they will come to that and see what it's like. But it doesn't matter where you go. You can go to the desert. You can go to the ocean, you can go to the jungle, you can go to the rainforest in Seattle, wherever you need to go. Go for as long as you can, as deep as you can. Go hard. Like you want to do a heroic dose of nature immersion.
Amazing.
To really, don't do like microdose nature. Do a heroic dose.
Macro dose.
Yeah, macro dose, like nature immersion if you want to change your brain. And it will. And so that means whether it's like a week-long backpacking trip or a month-long backpacking trip or a sailing trip across like a transatlantic sail, whatever you do, like start doing that. I think it just changes us as humans in a good way. I think we will become more iconoclastic in the best way.
Yeah.
I think we will become more rebellious in the best way when we do these things. And we will allow our brain to think more creatively when you just do that.
Sure.
So, I mean, I never thought of myself as a nature prescriptive human, but when I think about like where my life has come from, I think it impacted me greatly.
It's so funny that the metaphor itself, thinking inside the box, like we're literally thinking and living inside boxes, right angles all the time.
All the time.
And the prescription or the antidote to that is the fractal geometry of nature. Just dive full on into that and then see what happens, right?
I think you could use the term, it might be an incorrect use of the term, but I think you could use the term psychedelic. I think that being in real nature is psychedelic in some ways.
Yeah, psychedelics, there's a frame breaking process that takes place, and that's breaking the box that you live in and think in.
Yeah, I mean, isn't the synonym for psychedelics entheogens?
Oh, right.
So you're like engendering God.
The God.
You're like engendering God. And so I think you could make a strong argument that you're engendering a connection to a God if you're in nature.
Yeah.
It's certainly where I feel closest to anything spiritual or bigger than me. And so I think nature is an entheogen. And so it's hard to describe. We're sitting in your side yard, which is beautiful.
Yes. We should tell people why, actually. This was your request. And I'm really glad we did it, actually. Because it's the first time we've done it, and it feels so much better.
It's so much better.
Fuck that studio and the lights, man. That is terrible.
I'll get to that in one sec. But I think that, like, I was just going to say that, like, I think that's, this is great, but it's not, like edging right now.
Oh,
you know?
yeah. This is a microdose.
We're microdosing nature. You know, like I can look at the sky through the leaves and see the fractal patterns.
Yeah.
And you know, there's not a lot of EMF right here, RF, because we put the microphones on a 0 RF mode.
Yeah.
And, you know, but I see trees and I see green and I don't see a bunch of high rises, right? This is not a landscape of despair, but we are microdosing nature right now.
Yeah.
And this is very different from the way that you or anyone would feel if they come to this gathering in Costa Rica, which hopefully we'll do yearly. And I will take you, and I will take you when you come to Costa Rica, whether it's for the gathering or not. I will take you to the river below my house.
Okay.
And I can give you a photo if you want to put this photo in the podcast here of the river below my house. And you're just, it's real. You know, it's 5 minutes from my house in Costa Rica, but you're like, oh, this is real.
Yeah.
This is macro dose nature. And you just feel like, wow. You can feel life energy coming at you from the jungle. You're fully in the jungle in a river. You don't hear anything but jungle sounds. You don't see anything but jungle sounds. There's probably, you know, 100 people within a square mile of, you know, you're very far out. But, you know, I live so far out in Costa Rica that you can do that easily close to my house.
Yeah.
And very quickly you could get into raw wilderness in Costa Rica. You could just walk down the river and you know, you could get to a place where you're miles from any human very easily in Costa Rica. I mean, miles from any human, maybe not, but you can get very low density of humans and very low density of anything that humans would not have seen 100,000 years ago. That's like macrodosing nature. And you just sit there and you just think, what do I feel? How does this feel? It's different. And so the reason we're outside is because I've noticed that when I podcast, I don't feel as good after sitting under the blue lights, right? And you said, oh, we can set it up outside. And I thought, that was amazing. Thank you. So thank you for accommodating that, because I've been in Miami for about a month because I want to have a foot in both worlds. I'm still going to spend most of my time in Costa Rica, but I wanted to get a place here so I could bring people in podcast and connect with people, because human connection is important too. Yeah. And I did a couple of podcasts in a studio, and I've noticed, number one, for me with my circadian rhythm, if I do it in the afternoon, I don't sleep as well. Even though the sun is still up, the lights are blue, they're blinking, they're flickering, right? It's just, it doesn't feel good. It's kind of like processed light food in your body. Whereas, you know, we're sort of getting whole food here light. We're getting infrared, UV, full spectrum light that's not blinking. So the sun versus indoor lighting are basically the difference between a steak and Cheetos, in my opinion, right? And yeah, Cheetos have calories. They will give you calories. A blue light, you know, in a studio will illuminate you and you'll look okay, but I don't think your body has the same reaction to those two foods. Sure. I don't think your body has the same reaction to those two types of light. Now, whatever, like maybe the analogy extends even further. Like, is one Cheeto gonna kill you? No, you know? But if you eat Cheetos a lot, you know, like at some point it's like, well, I'd like to minimize my exposure. But, you know, if you'd said, hey, we can only do the podcast in the studio, I would have said, okay, let's just do it earlier in the day. And I'll take the hit because I want to do this and I want people to benefit from the content.
Because then you could go out in the sun and counterbalance the blue light from
I would try.
It's kind of like eating, you know, you eat a couple of Cheetos, so then you eat a bunch of steak to try.
Yeah, you try and do better afterwards, you know? But, you know, like, whatever, you know, I did Patrick Bet-David's podcast or Sean Ryan's podcast recently, and, you know, I can't say, hey, Pat, you know, let's do it outside. He's like, no, I got the studio full. You know, like everybody's, you know, like Trump, I sat in the same seat as Trump, you know, and like did this, you know, I can't be like, hey, Pat, let's set it up outside. But when I can, it's way better. Yeah.
Well, dude, I'm so glad you suggested it. And this was an awesome conversation.
Thank you, brother.
As I knew it would be.
It goes so fast.
Yeah, went fast. We're now going to go eat some buffalo, or what testicles are they?
Those are bull balls.
Bull testicle sashimi. That's our next stop.
Go do it.
So thank you so much.
That'll be on your OnlyFans. People can sign up
for
Robert's.
Yes, you can subscribe. It's very expensive though. It's going to be at least a Bitcoin a month, I think.
Sign up for Robert's OnlyFans and you can see us eating
beef testicles sashimi.
Yeah.
Where can people find you, your work on the internet?
I'm at Paul Saladino, MD, as in medical doctor, because I'm a medical doctor everywhere. So X, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Paul Saladino, MD.
Awesome. We'll link to all that.
Thank you, man.
Thank you so much.
It's good to be here.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this episode, click here to find more just like it, and here to find our most recent episode. Also, make sure to like this video to help shine light on the corruption of money. And be sure to subscribe to this channel to stay connected.